Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is your host, Doug Diamond, here for the Diamond Report Live, 10:05 p.m. on June 29th, 2025. And needless to say, I will be cutting that first video out of the YouTube broadcast of this. It's okay while we're live here, but I cannot leave it in there and have it be part of the archive of this show on YouTube. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube later on, after the actual Sunday night live stream, then you will know what you missed. Actually, you won't know what you missed. But you can find it in the description box below, linking over to Rumble or Brighteon or BitChute or even Facebook. We will leave the Greg Reese report on the 70% of Tennessee embalmers still seeing death by the you-know-what. So, anyway, needless to say, we'll have to remove it from the YouTube archive. It's okay while we're live here, and it will stay in there on the other platforms. So I thought it was a really good report, and good to know that they're at least talking about it to some degree. You know, it's been one of those things where nobody wants to talk about what's actually happening, the ginormous elephant in the room, as it were. So anyways, I thought that that was a good little Reese report there and was certainly worth showing you guys. And we're going to be talking, you know, Iran and WW3 stuff a little bit tonight, although I've got other stuff to look at. So I figured you guys are kind of like me, sort of like information overload on that whole thing. So between Trump and Iran and Israel and all that stuff. We do have a really important Israel video that we're going to watch that's a really good breakdown, I think, from Jay Dyer here in a little bit. We'll watch that. And I think that will give us all... You know, most of the people I think in this audience are believers in the Lord Jesus Christ. And I think that it will give us some really good perspective because Jay is also a believer. So we're going to look at that here in a little bit. So stay tuned for that. It's a really good synopsis of the whole deal with, you know, Israel and evangelicals and all of that. So we'll get into that in a little bit. So hello and welcome. This is Doug Diamond, your host, the Diamond Report Live. And we will see what all we can get into tonight. We've got quite a bit to take a look at. Starting off here with Hal Turner Radio Show. This is the top story on his site at the moment. 11 signs that the entire country is facing enormous economic challenges right now. While the first 6 months of Trump's second term as president are off to a running start, the magnitude of the damage to the U.S. economy under the Biden regime is proving extraordinarily difficult to overcome. Hobbled by gargantuan overregulation, stifled by a Federal Reserve that won't cut interest rates. Yeah, Trump has really been pretty upset about that, so we'll see where it goes. Despite all other industrialized countries seeing their central banks do so upwards of 5 times and forced to fill jobs with unqualified people under the guise of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, American corporations are staggering under the fierce load. Trump moves swiftly to reduce over-regulation, cutting 20 old rules, and any new rule enacted. Corporations are swiftly ditching the phony DEI and dumping the nitwits that they were forced to hire, but the Federal Reserve seems to be deliberately sabotaging economic recovery by flatly refusing to lower interest rates. Yes, and they would have already done that had Trump not been the president. Believe me. This is a get Trump move. Get Trump move, for sure, by the Fed. As a result of the carnage inflicted upon the American businesses by radical leftist policy wonks, most born with silver spoons in their mouths who never worked to create anything in their empty, miserable lives, the U.S. economy is hitting rough spots, serious rough spots, and it's showing. And then he's got a list here, top 11 things. Again, this is according to Hal Turner. Sales of new homes in the United States absolutely tanked last month. That's number 1. Number 2, according to the latest numbers that we've been given, home prices in the U.S. have fallen for 2 months in a row. Number 3, last month, existing home sales in the U.S. were the worst that we have seen during the month of May since 2009. Number 4, retail sales fell even more than expected last month. There's a lot of details on each one of these. I'm just giving you the bullet points. Number 5, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York is warning that the labor market deteriorated noticeably during the first quarter of the year. this year. Number 6, according to Challenger, Gray, and Christmas, U.S. employers announced 47% more job cuts in May 2025 than they did in May of 2024. 47% more. Man. That's number 6. Number 7, for the first 5 months of this year, U.S. employers announced 80% more job cuts than they did during the first 5 months of last year. And Trump, by the way, is going to get blamed for this, even though it was left over from the Biden economy, or lack thereof. Number 8, factories in California are permanently shutting down at a staggering pace. Number 9, more than 3% of Paramount's entire workforce will be hitting the bricks. Number 10, Microsoft is cutting jobs in its gaming division for the 4th time in 18 months. So video games, wow. Number 11, at this point, things are so bad that even Google is reducing headcount. So there's, again, a lot of details on every one of those bullet points. You'll have to go to Hal's site to get the full read here on everything. He goes on to say our ongoing economic decline is just one element of the perfect storm that we are now experiencing. Everyone, everywhere around us, and chaos is erupting. Unfortunately, I believe that conditions will become even more chaotic in the months ahead. If you currently have a job that you value, I would hold on to it as tightly as you can. We all remember what happened in 2008 and 9, and now it appears that another very serious downturn has arrived. So again, that's a top story here on Hal's website. Certainly worth a look, and more details than what I read through there, but you get the idea. Yes. So we will see what happens here, but yeah, economic downturn for real. And then if we have the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz and all the other things that could happen as a result of this war, then things will definitely get bad very quickly. So anyway, keep the Lord front and center in your lives, you guys. I know you guys know that, but it's all we can do, really. Reports. Drone strikes Iran ballistic missile base. Now, this is one of the top stories he has on his site, but he doesn't have a lot of information here. He's saying that the ceasefire between Israel and Iran may have just been broken. This is from earlier today. Reports are coming in indicating that a drone attack against an Iranian ballistic missile base near Shiraz, Iran, video below. The video below offers only sound of a distant battle, but locals are reporting that the missile base near Shiraz is under attack by Israeli drones, endeavoring to get better video and far more details. If the Israelis have attacked Iran again, I am told all hell is going to break loose, far worse than the first 12 days. So yes, we will see what the old Israelis have in store for the rest of us. Unfortunately, I think they want their war, don't you? Israeli damage from Iran war, billions. Middle East Spectator reports that Israel suffered direct losses exceeding $3 billion due to damage from Iranian missile attacks in the 12-day war. According to a June 25 report from Hebrew media, the losses may reach $5 billion. Indirect losses resulting from ceased business operations amount to about $1.5 billion. The most significant losses have been at the Weizmann Institute and the Bazan refinery in Haifa. Hebrew outlets claim that the destroyed Weizmann Institute alone suffered over $500 million in damages. The research and data samples were irrecoverably lost with no backups available, and more than 11,000 Israeli settlers have become homeless, and 33,000 houses were damaged, approximately 30% of which have been fully destroyed. Additionally, 4,500 businesses and 4,100 vehicles were destroyed. Over 38,000 compensation claims have been filed so far and expected to reach 50,000. I wonder how they're able to get insurance for war-torn areas in Israel. That seems strange to me. A total of 3,491 Israelis were injured, and 29 were announced dead. I think he means pronounced dead. 3 Jordanian citizens were also injured after Jordan attempted to intercept an Iranian drone. According to estimates, Iran launched between 590 and 630 ballistic and cruise missiles, along with 1,000 drones of various types. Hebrew outlets report that 500 missiles reached Israel, with attempts made to intercept 257 of them. Of those, 221 were reportedly successful interceptions, resulting in a success rate of 44.2%. Approximately half of all interceptions were conducted by American, Jordanian, and French forces. So much for the old Iron Dome, sounds like. Missile sirens sounded in Israel a total of 19,434 times. Missile sirens. That would get old really quick. 19,000 missile sirens. Unlike Operation True Promise 1 and 2, there's no indication that the British military actively helped defend Israel despite deploying the Royal Air Force Typhoon jets to the region. The losses do not account for the costs of defensive and offensive military operations, but THAAD interceptions by the U.S. military alone cost over $800 million, according to the earlier report. And guess who paid for that? You and I did, not Israel. So there you go. So the Iron Dome doesn't sound like it's firing at 100%. In fact, it's more like around 44%. And that's only, with all these other countries like American and French and Jordanian forces that were shooting down some of these missiles. So it doesn't look too good, does it? Anyway, I just wanted to kind of give you an impact report on what was happening over in Israel, because there's not much being said about that. They said early on that they were going to basically keep people from reporting what was going on. So figure that one out. They just don't want the truth to come out, obviously, on any of it. So that is Hal's site, HalTurnerRadioShow.com, and this one will just make you sick, but I thought I would report on it because we've mentioned chubby boy here, Randy Fine, a number of times on this show, and I just wanted to show you guys what a monster this guy actually is. We were kind of making fun of him earlier with drawing an analogy between him and the Blueberry Girl in Willy Wonka, and they do look very similar. However, note again what a monster this guy is. U.S. Senator, meaning Randy Fine, on dead Palestinian baby in Gaza, he says he sleeps fine. United States Senator Randy Fine revealed his true self on social media when photos emerged of a dead Palestinian baby under the rubble of a home bombed by Israeli forces. This is what exposed, quote, Senator Randy Fine. You should be ashamed of yourself. How do you sleep at night? And you see the baby here in the rubble. Sorry for the picture, but you have to see it, unfortunately. And Senator Randy Fine says, quite well, actually. Thanks for the pic! Exclamation point. Who voted for this monster? Is the question Hal is asking. He sleeps quite well, he says, knowing that there is at least one dead Palestinian, one less baby in the world. So I just thought I would show you what monsters some of these people are. And it's so true. Anyway, that is the last article I have pulled up here on Hal's website. So let's move on. We've got quite a few tabs tonight, maybe about the same as usual. Biden aide confesses to Congress that she directed the auto pen without knowing who gave final approval. Yeah, right. We're supposed to believe this. This is on needtoknow.news. Neera Tanden, a former top aide to President Joe, said she was authorized to direct auto pen signatures, but was unaware of who in the president's inner circle was giving her the final clearance. We're supposed to believe this. She was told to run the auto pen, but doesn't know by who. Yeah. Okay, it says she's unaware of who in the president's inner circle was giving her the final clearance. The system of approval used was inherited from previous administrations, according to claims. Then when asked whether there was any effort to hide Biden's condition, she replied, absolutely not. Okay. AJ from InfoWars said that there was a committee with the Clintons, Barack Obama, and Jill Biden who would come to consensus over policies and actions. As President Joe was essentially a puppet who was allegedly to be mentally unfit, Jones says, meaning AJ from InfoWars, said that there was a subgroup controlling the auto pen for Biden and was selling pardons to drug dealers, murderers, and criminals. Selling pardons. He said that Neera Tanden is the patsy for this consortium. Roger Stone said that he believes that all of the Autopin signed documents are invalid and do not have the force of law. He speculated that Susan Rice or Valerie Jarrett may have been directing Tanden on behalf of Barack Insane Obama. I tend to think that that's probably the case. But old Hillary's got to have her hands in this mess too. I think that that's probably likely, although maybe harder to prove. Who knows? But the point here is, if she won't give up who told her to do this, then she's the one guilty and should go to prison. This is treason. And many other crimes, I'm sure. Signing documents as if they were the president of the United States. That's supposed to get you in trouble, but has it got her in trouble yet? Have they dragged her out of the courtroom in cuffs yet? Will they ever? Will anyone ever pay for any of these crimes that the Democrats and some of the Republicans have committed over the course of the last 4 or 5 years? Ever? Will anyone ever be held accountable? Yeah, I don't think so either. Just a guess. Anyway, that is on needtoknow.news. And then, pastor crucified in religiously motivated murder, alleged killer had a hit list of 14 ministers. Note the tattoo on his neck. This is the killer here. Arizona, Adam Christopher Schief, 51, this guy, admitted to killing a 76-year-old man named William Shoneman, known as Pastor Bill. He said that he killed Pastor Bill for preaching that Jesus is the Son of God, which he said is a false teaching because the first commandment says there's only one God. Note, again, his tattoo. What does that tell you? Shoneman was found dead at his home. In other words, the Pastor Bill guy here was found dead at his home covered in blood on Monday, April 28th. So this goes back a ways. Schief was arrested 2 days after Shoneman was found dead following a manhunt regarding recent burglaries. Schief planned to assassinate 14 pastors around the nation. Again, note the tattoo on his neck. What does that tell you? What country do you suppose he is actually serving? Warning, graphic descriptions of violence. Well, I won't go into all of the details here. You guys are welcome to read through this. But yes, this kind of sums it up. A Jewish extremist crucified and murdered in Arizona, an Arizona Christian pastor in an elaborate plan to kill 14 Christian leaders in 10 different states in what he called Operation First Commandment. So this kind of goes back to the Noahide laws, doesn't it? That claiming Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior is blasphemy. That's what they say, because they say that Jehovah is God and that there are no other gods. And so Jesus was put to death, wasn't he? So this guy right here is what is called here a Jewish extremist. Well, sounds to me like he was just going by the Noahide laws, at least to some degree. You can see his crazy look here. So there's more details in this article. And yeah, he was caught after the first pastor that he, it says crucified. I think he actually did. Let's see. He allegedly executed him and then placed a crown of thorns on his head in a sick crucifixion ritual. So he did try to react the whole crucifixion thing, it sounds like, at least to some degree. So what a sick guy this Jewish extremist is. Man, I just thought I would point that out. Probably not supposed to know about that, but there you go. Anyway, and then this one, Texas teen Carmelo Anthony to be charged as an adult with first-degree murder in the stabbing case. You can see here he's, showing how innocent he is, the gun and the middle finger and the lighter. Frisco, Texas, on April 2nd, Carmelo Anthony admitted to stabbing Austin Metcalf to death and claimed he did it in self-defense. We've covered this story multiple times here, but we'll continue. According to police, Anthony was sitting under a tent that belonged to a rival school and refused to leave when the victim asked him to vacate the tent. Anthony's bail was reduced from $1 million to $250,000 in April. He posted bond that day, and he wore an ankle monitor. The grand jury indicted him, and he will be tried as an adult for first-degree murder. If convicted, Anthony will face 5 to 99 years or life in a Texas prison and an optional fine not to exceed $10,000. A fundraiser for Carmelo was opened by his family on GiveSendGo and collected $539,000. The family lives in a home in a gated community and may have relocated. Anthony's GiveSendGo campaign was updated this week and is now seeking an additional sum of more than $850,000 for a total of nearly $1.4 million. Sarah Field reported in X that only 24 hours prior, Carmelo Anthony submitted an indigent Packer to the Collin County Court requesting a court-appointed legal representative claiming to be, quote, financially destitute. So, interesting. An indigent packet. So, I've got an article pulled up on that. So, he's saying that he is not able to pay an attorney. So, in other words, you're giving all of these hundreds of thousands of dollars to this guy and his family, and they don't want to bother spending any of that money that you're giving to them on lawyers. No, they want the taxpayers to pay for the lawyers. So how about that? No court appearances are scheduled at this time. So we don't really know when this is going to proceed. My guess is he will get a very favorable judge. There are a lot of corrupt judges in Texas. I'll be surprised if he ever does any time. But we'll see. Again, we shall see. All right. Got a few technocracy.news articles, and the first couple here are on the old ChatGPT. Thought I would bring it up and see what you guys thought. New study from MIT, ChatGPT's impact on our brains. The study concludes that while these tools offer unprecedented opportunities for enhancing learning and informational access, their potential impact on cognitive development, critical thinking, and intellectual independence demands a very careful consideration and continued research. Does ChatGPT harm critical thinking abilities? A new study from researchers at MIT have returned some concerning results. So the results here say the study has divided 54 subjects, 18 to 39 years old, from the Boston area into 3 groups and asked them to write several SAT essays using OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google search engine, and nothing at all, respectively. Researchers used an EEG to record the writer's brain activity across 32 regions and found that of the 3 groups, ChatGPT users had the lowest brain engagement and consistently underperformed at neural, linguistic, and behavioral levels. Over the course of several months, ChatGPT users got lazier with each subsequent essay, often resorting to copy and paste by the end of the study. There's a video embedded here. ChatGPT rewires your brain, ? Shocking EEG results. Yeah, so it says the paper suggests that the usage of LLMs, large language models, could actually harm learning, especially for younger users. The paper has not yet been peer-reviewed, and its sample size is relatively small, but its paper's main author felt that it was important to release the findings to elevate concerns that as society increasingly relies upon LLMs, again AI, for immediate convenience, long-term brain development may be sacrificed in the process. Sounds to me like that might be part of the deal, part of the original idea. Put AI in where it's usable by everyone, and then everyone uses it and gets dumber over time. What a stupid question to ask. This is from Susan. Does allowing a computer algorithm to think for you dumb you down? Duh, let me think. Yeah, Alexa, is this true? It's a good question. I like that. Anyway, what really motivated me to put it out before waiting for a full peer review is that I'm afraid that in 6 to 8 months, which is probably how long it takes to get peer reviewed, there will be some policymaker who decides, let's do GPT kindergarten. I think that would be absolutely bad and detrimental, she says. Developing brains are at the highest risk. Yeah, ChatGPT for kindergartners is what they're saying. That would not be good. Anyway, yeah. Lowers brain capacity. So there you go. From the study. And of course, they started with Bostonians. I'm not sure how smart that was, but I don't know. Use that as whatever joke you want. All right, and then ChatGPT psychosis, so yet more on the whole GPT thing. The collapse of reality is wrecking lives. Now, Patrick Wood, again, the main writer here and owner of Technocracy.news, says, when I wrote in 2023 warning, reality is escaping out the back door, I guess one of his books, I knew that stories like this would appear. ChatGPT psychosis, quote unquote, is not a formal psychiatric diagnosis yet, but it is already described in academic literature, and the cases are streaming in. Many are tragic, all are sad, but others will follow. OpenAI and others will disavow all responsibility. Yes, of course, they will. That's what they do. As reported earlier this month, many ChatGPT users are developing all-consuming obsessions with the chatbot, spiraling into severe mental health crises characterized by paranoia, delusions, and breaks with reality. Wow, the consequences can be desired. The consequences can be very dire, as we heard from spouses and friends, children, and parents looking on in alarm. Instances of what's being called ChatGPT psychosis have led to the breakup of marriages and families, the loss of jobs, and slides into homelessness. And that's not all. As we've continued reporting, we've heard numerous troubling stories about people's loved ones being involuntarily committed to psychiatric care facilities or even ending up in jail after becoming fixated on the bot. And then here's a quote. Quote, I was just like, I don't effing know what to do, end quote. One woman told us, nobody knows who knows what to do. Her husband, she said, had no prior history of mania, delusion, or psychosis. He turned to ChatGPT about 12 weeks ago for assistance with a permaculture and construction project. Soon after engaging the bot in probing philosophical chats, he became engulfed in messianic delusions, proclaiming that he had somehow brought forth a sentient AI and that with it he had broken math and physics, embarking on a grandiose mission to save the world. Sounds to me like his personality was probably a little susceptible to that kind of thing. Says his gentle personality faded as his obsession deepened, and his behavior became so erratic that he was let go from his job. He stopped sleeping and rapidly lost weight. So that will be the next weight loss gimmick. Get addicted to ChatGPT and ruin your life, but you'll lose weight. I can hear it now. So anyway, this is a pretty lengthy article, as you can see here. There's a lot here about the psychosis of ChatGPT, what it's called. Anyway, ChatGPT psychosis. So something to watch out for if you use that tool. Just be very, very careful. It may suck you in. It is demonic after all, right? Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think so, and I can see where people might think exactly that. It does kind of make sense. Being run from the dark side. Anyway, yeah, that one's on technocracy.news. And then this one is as well. This is the third and final article from this site. Woven City. Woven City is a living laboratory for technocracy. Toyota has a city called Woven City. Did you know this? Toyota is building a slice of heaven or hell for a few thousand people who work for Toyota. No cars allowed. That's kind of ironic, isn't it? All privacy is removed. All privacy removed. So everybody knows everything about everybody else. The 2017 movie The Circle explored the horrific implications of social transparency and the potential dangers of a completely interconnected world. Yes, what could possibly go wrong? The name Woven City harkens back to Toyota's historical roots as a manufacturer of automatic looms, symbolizing the idea of weaving together not just our streets, but also people, technologies, and data into a cohesive, interconnected urban environment. The weavers are the inventors, researchers, and residents. And they will be the ones exposing everything, every part of their lives, I guess. Except for the people at the top. They won't, will they? They never do. So it sounds like some version of a smart city, I guess. Toyota's Woven City is an experimental smart city, there you go, being built in Japan as a living laboratory for cutting-edge technology and urban living. Yes, they will own nothing and be very happy. Envisioned as a high-tech utopia at the base of Mount Fuji, this prototype city will integrate artificial intelligence, robotics, smart infrastructure, and even a digital twin virtual model to optimize every aspect of daily life. The project's goal is to enhance well-being for all by creating a fully connected environment where people, buildings, and vehicles communicate through data and sensors. Such an ambitious vision prompts important questions for Christians who study prophecy. Does this technocratic vision of a city of the future have echoes of ancient prophetic warnings? Question mark. That's one of the bullet point questions here. And then this one. Could the features of Woven City be foreshadowing aspects of the prophesied end times beast system? That's the other question here. I think we're already in the beast system, don't you guys? It's already been built all around the whole world. This is a perhaps a more integrated, smaller area where it's in one smart city here where everything's sort of focused in one place, but we're already seeing the beast system being built out around us, in my opinion. In this article, we'll explore Woven City's key innovations and examine them from a prophetic perspective, one that anticipates a future period of tribulation, a global beast government, and Christ's ultimate return. We will compare Woven City's AI-driven, hyper-connected urban model with prophecies about societal control, deception, false peace, and human pride, drawing parallels to spiritual and scriptural warnings in Revelation and Daniel, 2 Thessalonians, and other passages. Our aim is to discern whether this bold human project contains Babel-like aspirations and potential links to the coming prophetic scenarios. I think it's too late, don't you? Too late. It's already been being built. It's good that they're looking at this in that way. Maybe this will wake up some people and say, hey, wait a minute. Yeah, the beast system is being built out now, today, not when they start making cities like this. But you can see here they're talking about the image of the beast. Revelation 13. This stuff is happening now, not in the future. So, but you can see it's a really long article. There's a lot here. So again, that is on technocracy.news. They don't usually at all get into the prophetic stuff, into scripture and things like that at all on this site. So I was kind of interested to see that was even there. I don't really totally agree with it. I mean, I do think that it is already in place now. It's just a matter of opening your eyes and seeing it. Anyway, that is the final article from that site. And then Pride remains a sin. Yes, you know what month it is, don't you? Pride month. Of course, it's almost over now. As June comes to an end, so does the pagan festival of debauchery known as Pride Month. It has become an annual annoyance to find troops of dancing gay men, usually semi-naked and engaging in various forms of erotic foreplay, overtaking public streets as the first warm days of summer return. It would be nice if the LGBTQ plus crowd, or the alphabet people, yes, I call them the Skittles crowd, to those without a special letter designation, could enjoy their civil rights without resorting to X-rated acts of exhibitionism in front of children and strangers. Alas, the celebration of sin seems to be Pride Month's chief purpose, which surely explains why its proponents chose one of the deadliest sins, pride as its defining attribute. Yeah, isn't that lovely? I think people forget that pride indeed is a sin. So that's what this whole article is about. Elon Musk, please buy CNN. Thought that was kind of funny. Hey, Elon, I have the funniest idea ever. Comcast is putting MSNBC up for sale. CNN just announced massive layoffs. Maybe the new owners will figure out that lying nonstop to your audience is a lousy business model. Elon did respond. He responded in jest. How much does it cost? Question mark. As I wrote at the time, MSNBC is a dumpster fire. Do not buy MSNBC, more affectionately dubbed MSDNC. Yes, I've heard that before. There are no redeemable qualities about the MSNBC outlet. CNN, however, would be an outstanding prospect of consideration for Elon or some other MAGA-adjacent investor. Warner Brothers Discovery recently announced that it is splitting HBO Max and CNN into two different entities. CNN's on the ropes even before its disastrous, low-confidence, top-secret reporting on the Iranian nuclear facility's bombing. Its viewership has taken a dive since the election. There is a 27% drop in overall viewership compared to previous years. In May 2025, CNN's primetime viewership averaged 426,000, down 18% from the previous year. The network's average primetime viewership has plummeted to 374,000, which is 6 times lower than Fox News. Yeah, well, Fox News has the support of Israel, though. They're Israel's main mouthpiece. You know, CNN just needs to start working for Israel like Fox is. So anyway, a couple articles there on the Liberty Beacon. Now, this is the additional info I found on the Carmelo and exactly where that money was going. And this is also stating that they're going to be using the money for the family and not for his legal defense. Right here is the TFDA indigent packet. It says that the family had openly stated that they had full access to the funds, no restriction, and only the holdup was that it would take a couple days to get the cash. Next, Carmelo's legal fund has only raised $3,000 since they upped the request to $1.4 million. In other words, he's screwed. So they did up the amount that they were asking for on GoFundMe, but apparently the money's not pouring in quite as fast now, so that's good news. Many are now wondering, how can you claim indigent status requesting a taxpayer-funded lawyer while your family is sitting on at least $500,000 in donations? And why are they suddenly asking for $1.4 million to build a legal team? What we're seeing is a totally new form of grift. This one weaponizes race, tragedy, and left-wing outrage and turns criminals into celebrities, lines the pockets of activist groups and left-wing ambulance chasers, and turn these families into lottery winners. And just like with the suicide bombers in the Middle East, the incentive is clear: commit violence and then your family gets rich. Except not in this case. It's not martyrdom for some twisted cause. It's straight up profit from chaos. This is starting to look like yet another left-wing racket that's dripping with fraud, and yet again taxpayers are footing the bill. So, more details here on this Revolver.news article. A couple videos embedded as well. So, anyway, yeah, I don't know. My guess is, though, he's probably going to walk or have a minimal charge. Again, I do think there's a lot of corrupt judges in Texas, so I just don't see it amounting to much, but we'll see where it goes. I'm probably going to continue to get paid through GoFundMe as well, so who knows? Who knows? All right, and then this one from Politico I thought was interesting but not surprising. Dead members of Congress can't stop posting. Well, they can't stop voting either. At least, not necessarily members of Congress, but lots of dead people vote. We know this. Well, this is slightly different. It says the accounts for recently deceased lawmakers have continued to post on social media, highlighting how little official policy there is for how to handle their online presence after they die. Did you guys know that Rep. Sheila Jackson Lee passed away. I didn't realize that she did. After Zohran Mamdani's apparent victory in the New York Democrat mayoral primary on Tuesday, former Rep. Sheila Jackson Lee, Democrat, Texas, liked an Instagram post congratulating him on his win. The only problem is Jackson Lee died last July. I must have missed that, or I guess I forgot. From ghost likes and new profile pictures to a posthumous endorsement, accounts for dead lawmakers have seemingly resurrected on social media in an unsettling trend of beyond-the-grave engagement. Well, obviously it's just family members or staffers or something. So anyway, but yeah, there's this is going on to talk about the Jackson Lee thing. Then there's others. Rep. Sylvester Turner, a Democrat who filled Lee's Texas seat for a brief 2 months before his own passing in March 2025, appeared to change his profile picture on X 3 weeks after he died. So Democrats like to keep those accounts open, don't they? Happy hashtag opening day. Turner's personal account posted on Major League Baseball opening day, adding the hashtag new profile pic along with a photo of the late lawmaker holding a baseball. The community guidelines note affixed by X to the post noted that Sylvester Turner died on March 5th, 2025. So there you go. And that's not all. It keeps going. Former Rep. Jerry Connolly, Virginia Democrat, who died in May, has also continued to make waves from beyond the grave as his political social media accounts chugged back to life to notify followers that early voting had begun in a race to fill his vacant seat. Before his passing, Connolly had endorsed his former chief of staff to replace him, having announced that he had planned to step away from Congress after his esophageal cancer returned in April. People on Connolly's mailing list have also reported continuing receiving emails. I'm sure they're probably asking, they're asking for donations as well. So how about that? So yeah, it looks like there's a lot of that going on. And guess who is mostly behind it? Democrats. There's Mr. Connolly here, actually. So, not too surprising, is it? Anyway, thought I would just point that out because I hadn't really heard of that one before. The Federalist Supreme Court allows parents to opt children out of the LGBTQ ABCXYZ propaganda in school. So again, good news here, I think, don't you? Alito noted in the opinion that the curriculum was designed to indoctrinate children into accepting homosexual unions and transgender, quote-unquote, ideology. So the Supreme Court ruled on Friday, 6-3 decision, that parents are allowed to opt their children out of that propaganda. So that's good news. In the case Mahmoud versus Taylor, arose a group of Christian, Jewish, and Muslim parents in Montgomery County, Maryland, seeking to remove their young children from course material that tells children as young as 3 or 4 to look for underwear, leather, and it says drag king and drag queen in a pride parade, and actively advocates gay marriage, transgender identifying children, and that gender identity can change at any moment. While Montgomery County schools initially allowed parents to opt their children out, a number of parents requesting such accommodations were so high that the school district cracked down and forced the highly sexual material in front of the children. A group of parents sued based on religious liberty grounds protected by the First Amendment. The Supreme Court decided that the parents are entitled to a preliminary injunction, meaning they can pull their children out of the instruction as their lawsuit proceeds. The 3 left-wing justices on the court issued a dissent written by Justice Sotomayor. Shocker. Yeah. True Nature says drag king. That's gross. Yes, drag kings and drag queens. I didn't know about that either. But there you have it. Anyways, so I guess it's good news that the Supreme Court has at least found a little common sense here. So there's quite a bit here on this Federalist article, thefederalist.com. So we'll link to this in the Substack post that I send out on Tuesday, so make sure you're on that list. All right, so we're going from the Supreme Court to something completely different here. This is just another weird thing that I found. Not on my bingo card was James Dyson, the vacuum cleaner company. James Dyson engineering a mass production system for strawberries. What? Growing things is like making things. I'm a manufacturer, and so I suppose, in a way, I've approached farming from that point of view. So we're going from vacuum cleaners to growing strawberries in mass. Figure that one out. I don't know if they're GMO strawberries. They're in this greenhouse system here. No idea, but obviously the scale of this thing is massive. And we're just watching a little bit of the footage here roll by. And it is a full video on this X post. And if you're interested in growing strawberries in vacuum cleaners, perhaps you might want to check it out. But look at that. Massive greenhouse. Yeah. Very strange. So I guess he's branching out. Not just vacuums now, I suppose. I thought that was a little weird. Anyway, just came across it. Thought I would mention it to you guys. All right, and then this article from LifeZet. LA Times sparks outrage with tutorial on hiding illegal alien workers. Sounds like AOC. I think they've been listening to her. A reporter at the LA Times is facing widespread criticism after posting a video. There's an article about that particular video on redstate.com, posting a video that appeared to offer guidance to Southern California mothers on how to shield their illegal immigrant nannies from enforcement actions by ICE. Jenny Gold, a reporter with the outlet, produced an 80-second video segment posted to the LA Times official Instagram account. The clip includes suggestions aimed at helping domestic employers protect their undocumented childcare workers. Never mind the fact that they're illegals and they broke the law literally when they came in the country. So that makes them illegal, and therefore they should be sent back. The advice, according to the video, was sourced from Kayla Shore, lead research manager at Hand in Hand, a nonprofit organization that advises domestic employers on labor practices. Yeah, and how to keep the illegals in their employment, I'm sure. Among the tips Gold shared in the video was for employers to consider placing their nannies on paid leave rather than allowing them to commute to work amid immigration enforcement activity. So yes, hide them. She also suggests employers consider escorting their domestic workers to public transportation or paying for taxis to help them avoid ICE detection. Quote, a lot of nannies are taking a big risk by going to work right now, end quote. No, they took a big risk when they came into our country illegally. That was the big risk. And now they need to be sent back. Nothing against people who are obeying the law, but by definition, these people literally broke the law by coming into the country. So there you go. Anyway, thought that was interesting that she's taken the AOC method of dealing with these illegals and trying to avoid processing by ICE. Pretty wild. Anyway, that's on LifeZet. LifeZet. I thought this one's kind of interesting too, and pretty funny. Rosie O'Donnell, the crazy Hollywoodite, says the Trump presidency made her overeat, drink, and self-deport to Ireland. So Donald Trump made her fat. Oh, wait a minute. I don't think he was president when she was around before. So wait a minute. Wasn't she already fat before he was ever president? It seems like it. Maybe I'm wrong. Actress and comedian, quote, I would say comedian, quote unquote, Rosie O'Donnell said that President Trump's first term took such a toll on her mental health that she began overeating and drinking, which led to her eventual self-deportation to Ireland. So she self-deported to Ireland. Yeah, so she's talking about how terrible things are for her. And I know you feel sorry for her, but this was what was funny, I thought. I find myself feeling safe, she said of Ireland. There's no MAGA support here. So I'm telling you all of this story because I know there are plenty of never Trumpers and no Trumpers and Trump haters in this audience, of which I am not one. I do think he's done some good things. I do think that we have to keep a sharp eye on the guy. I don't think he's evil, but there are many of you guys in the audience. You know who you are, but you too can self-deport to Ireland if you want and go live right next door to Rosie O'Donnell. There you go. Just a little idea, a little thought that I had. If you want to be free of MAGA, if you want to be free of Donald Trump and Trump derangement syndrome and all that, apparently they've found the solution in Ireland. How hard would that be? Even if you're not Irish, which I don't know if she is or not. Anyway, thought that was kind of funny. That's on Breitbart. All right. Over 200 people see UFO in broad daylight, according to this Headline USA article. It did have a bright tail that disappeared with it and left behind a smoke trail. So we've just gone from Rosie O'Donnell and Trump derangement syndrome into UFOs. So we do everything on this show. We cover it all. All right. Headline USA says more than 200 people across half a dozen southern U.S. states have now reported witnessing a mysterious object streak across the sky on Thursday. And the National Space Agency now believes it was a remarkably bright meteor known as a bolide. They're just making this up, aren't they? Bolide, B-O-L-I-D-E. Most sightings of the streak of light and fireball came from Georgia and South Carolina around 12:30 p.m., according to the report from the National Weather Service in Peachtree, Georgia. It says, here's what to know about the object. Pieces of meteor believed to be on the ground in Georgia. NASA, which again means never a straight answer, determined that it was about the size of a shopping cart as it streaked through the sky. Scientists were able to track the meteor's path after analyzing eyewitness accounts, images from cameras, and data from satellites and weather radar. The meteor was first spotted over Oxford, Georgia, as it moved southwest across the sky. And then it says it broke apart over the small community of West Forest, Georgia, unleashing the energy of about 20 tons of TNT. It created booms heard by many residents in the area. The meteor falling to the ground was detected by multiple weather radars, and many meteorites are believed to be on the ground in the Blacksville, Georgia area. So I guess it broke up and then ended up in these different places. People express amazement in witness accounts. So anyway, I didn't know if you guys knew about the bolide, or at least the meteor, whatever you want to call it, over in the southeast part of the U.S. I did not know about this until I saw this article, and thought it was kind of interesting and wanted to mention it. All right, Information Liberation articles. Trump eyes Kentucky-Israel caucus. Kentucky and Israel caucus. Aaron Reed to replace Thomas Massie in Congress. So yes, Trump is, one of the things I dislike about the guy is he is a huge supporter of Israel. That fake Bible-thumping country over there in the Middle East who portrays to be God's chosen people. Well, Trump thinks I think he actually believes that they really are that, and he's trying to get Thomas Massie ousted. So this is the person, I guess, that they're going to run against him. President Trump is reportedly looking to recruit Kentucky State Senator Aaron Reed, a Christian Zionist member of the Kentucky Israel Caucus, which apparently is a real thing, who believes Israel is God's chosen nation, to replace Thomas Massie. I think that he will lose big time. And the reason I say that is because people are really waking up fast to the whole Israel thing, and people are not being quite as blinded by this. Now, that doesn't mean Trump is. I'm just saying I think regular, ordinary people are so sick and tired of Israel and us having to endlessly fund everything they're doing. People are tired of it. They don't want to be involved in wars over there. And I don't think this guy, Aaron Reed, would be able to beat Thomas Massie, personally. Thomas Massie's done a lot of really good work. Again, he's a a fiscal conservative in Congress. There's not very many of them. Again, you could probably count them on one hand, maybe even only on one finger. There aren't many, and he, in my opinion, deserves to stay there. So anyway, Trump is trying to oust him, so I thought I would mention that. Trump threatens to cut off aid to Israel if they don't drop prosecution of Netanyahu. If they don't drop it. President Trump has threatened to cut off aid to Israel if they don't drop their prosecution of Bibi on charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. Yeah. I'm not exactly sure what he's thinking there, but he's trying to be the good guy, I guess, and portray Bibi as the person that he's working with and working for. I don't know which. But he doesn't want United States President Benjamin Netanyahu to face any of these charges because apparently he's the actual U.S. president, not Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the president of the United States on the domestic issues. Bibi Netanyahu is the president of the United States on the international and foreign side of things. Seems to be the way it works. Trump spends $1 million on attack ads, smearing Thomas Massie as pro-child genital mutilation terrorist. So AIPAC is recruiting a challenger to take on Thomas Massie, and President Trump is already spending $1 million of his donors' money on smearing the America First congressman as a terrorist who wants to mutilate children's genitals. So if you've given money to Trump, just know that your money may be going to defeat Massie, which again, I don't think will work, but we'll see. Washington Post says Netanyahu decided on Iran war last year and then moved to recruit Trump. So President Benjamin Netanyahu, U.S. President Benjamin Netanyahu, had decided a year ago to move on Iran. And then they just had to get Trump sort of lassoed into the whole thing, and it worked. So it says Prime Minister Netanyahu decided on launching a war with Iran last year and just made up some phony intelligence to justify an attack and encouraged President Donald Trump to join in. And, well, it worked. Then this next article, U.S. Intel assessment finds strikes failed to destroy Iran's nuclear sites. U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, quote, did not collapse underground buildings, end quote, and only set their nuclear capabilities back by a few months. Reuters reported on Tuesday, citing a source familiar with findings of a new classified Defense Intelligence Agency Intel assessment. So DIA. Yeah, so we mentioned this last week that I'm not real sure that the bombing run, the bombing campaign actually did what they keep saying that it did. There's no way to know, and we'll probably never know for sure. But it did turn out that there were satellite photos. I don't have them pulled up here, but there were satellite photos of the Iranians weeks ahead of time by, I think it was, multiple vehicles, probably 20 or 30 in the picture I saw, where they were loading stuff up in that very area and moving it out. So I tend to think that whatever they bombed in Iran most likely was maybe the facility, but not the actual uranium enrichment materials. I don't think that they actually got the program as it's being touted. All right, next article, Israel agrees to a ceasefire with Iran after regime change operation fails. Iran managed to not only survive Israel's decapitation strike, but reconstitute and rain down missiles across the Jewish state. Yeah, and then again, Thomas Massie here. Trump plans to oust Massie, that of Republican Jewish coalition. Mirrors that of Republican Jewish coalition. So anyway, that is just a few of the headlines here on Information Liberation. And feel free to take a look at that if you guys want. They have pretty good articles. We just looked at the headlines. And then, let's see, WNG.org. Got a few articles from this site. Assassinated Minnesota politician lies in state as suspect appears in court. You guys remember this from a couple weeks ago. The slain former Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman lay in state on Friday at the state capitol in St. Paul alongside her husband Mark and their golden retriever, Gilbert. Gilbert was the dog. Less than 24 Minnesotans have lain in the state capitol, with Melissa making history as the first woman afforded the honor. A gunman is accused of fatally shooting the couple in their home earlier this month and wounding another lawmaker and his wife the same night. Hundreds of people paid respects to the trio on Friday, including Governor Tim Walz, according to a KSTP reporter. The viewing line is long, with the mood of somber reflection and quiet conversation. Democrat Senator Gustafson said federal legislators passed a measure condemning political violence on Thursday in memory of the Hortmans, according to U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar. Of course. The pair will continue to lie in state before a private funeral on Saturday. So that was yesterday. What is happening with the suspected shooter is the question here. Suspected assassin Vance Bolter made his second court appearance Friday, facing 2 federal murder charges with additional stalking and weapons charges. The scheduled hearing was cut short when Magistrate Judge Micco granted Bolter's request to move the hearing to next week. Bolter's attorneys alleged their client suffered from sleep deprivation due to poor treatment in the local county jail. Oh, he's not able to rest, so that he needs more time. Anyway, yeah, I don't know that I buy that, but the crazy, I think I showed him last week, the guy who was supposedly his roommate came out. He came out like right after that and said that he was set up with the exact proper mainstream media question, which was, did Bolter, who did the murdering, did he listen to any certain podcast? That was literally one of the questions to this roommate of this guy. And he said, oh yeah, he listens to InfoWars, and he's a Trump supporter. So how about that set up softball question and swing and try to hit it to the fence? Man. Yeah, they're trying to blame all this on Trump and InfoWars, or at least some of it. But no, the guy that did the murdering actually did come out and say that he was doing this for Tim Walz. So he's pointed the finger here at Tim Walz, like Tim Walz had set him up somehow or asked him to do it. So I don't know where this is going, but it's not looking too good for old Tim Walz here. It doesn't actually mention that in this article, but that is part of the story going on. This article is on WNG.org. All right, and then one more from this same site. Colorado summer camp allowed to operate according to Christian beliefs. They're allowed to. Camp IDRAHAJE, I don't know what that is, on Wednesday reached an agreement with the state of Colorado in a lawsuit over a new state transgender policy. The Colorado Department of Early Childhood, or CDEC, in 2024 amended its regulations to require licensed camps to allow children to access bathrooms, dressing rooms, and sleeping facilities based on their so-called gender identity rather than their biological sex. The department oversees licensing for resident camps, and Camp Idrahaji, I guess is how you pronounce it, claimed it rejected a request for an exemption from the rule, according to the lawsuit filed in May. In the settlement Wednesday, the camp agreed to drop its lawsuit while the state said it would grant the organization an exemption. So this Christian camp does not have to follow these transgender rules, apparently. So that was, I mean, you know, it's good news, but not really that surprising that this was going on in Colorado. Let's see. What the state said. In a statement Tuesday, the state confirmed the settlement, saying the regulation in request did not apply to the Christian camp. The rules were based on the Colorado Civil Rights Commission's rules to implement the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, according to Early Childhood Department. Those rules do not apply to places primarily focused and used for religious purposes like Camp Idrahaji. The state did not take any enforcement action against the camp, they said. and then it says it's located in Bailey, Colorado, and then some background here. It says the camp derives its name from the hymn, I'd Rather Have Jesus. So that's where you get the IDRAHAJE. Idrahaji. I'd rather have Jesus. Now I get it. Anyway, that's the story on this one. There it is right there. So yes, I guess that's another small win. Kind of like the whole Supreme Court thing we mentioned a little bit ago. And then this was a story earlier today. Quite disturbing, actually. Hopefully this is not a trend. You guys hear about this? What happened in Idaho? 2 U.S. firefighters killed in a sniper ambush. Police are searching for a gunman who targeted first responders during a blaze in Idaho. 2 firefighters were shot and killed in an apparent ambush while responding to a wildfire in Coeur d'Alene on Sunday, today. Authorities said the gunman remains at large and investigators are probing whether the fire was deliberately set to lure the first responders. Emergency crews were dispatched to Canfield Mountain, a popular hiking and biking destination, around 1:30 local time. Roughly 30 minutes later, reports of gunfire began coming in, according to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. We don't know how many suspects are up there. We don't know how many casualties there are, sheriff said. We're actively taking sniper fire as we speak. Norris said, the same sheriff here, said that the shooter appeared to be using a high-powered rifle and taking cover in rugged terrain. I'm hoping that somebody has a clear shot and is able to neutralize the suspect because they're not showing any evidence of wanting to surrender. So imagine this. So you've got this fire situation. You got emergency responders, people going to the fire to help put it out, and they get shot and killed. Man. And we are not living in the end times. Man, I just thought that was a crazy story. That was all over X earlier today. And we'll look at that in a little bit more when I get there. When we pull up the X tab here in a bit. How Christian Zionism distorts Scripture to serve empire. Why America's blessed Israel obsession risks the church, the world, and the truth. So this is a good lead-in to the video that I wanted to show you guys today. It's kind of a little bit of a long video, so I'm going to warn you ahead of time, but it's really good. Jay Dyer does a really good explanation here. It's from a longer clip. The whole thing is called How the British Empire, Working with the Rothschilds, has been working for hundreds of years to covertly take over Islam and use it as a weapon to destroy Christian European civilizations. That's the name of the video. It's kind of long. But before we go to that video, let's just take a look at this article just for a second. During a recent interview with Tucker Carlson, Senator Ted Cruz displayed not only an alarming geopolitical ignorance, but also a brazen willingness to distort Scripture in defense of his unwavering support of Israel, which again, I think people are really waking up to quickly, which is good news. The verse he quoted, Genesis 12:3, was shamelessly truncated, a common tactic used to lend divine legitimacy to Zionist exceptionalism and end times prophecy. This verse has become the theoretical bedrock of a militant worldview known as Christian Zionism. Even Jewish critics of Israeli state policy expressed dismay at the historical illiteracy and theological crudeness fueling this metastasizing ideology within American evangelical circles. I recall debating this phenomenon over a decade ago on LinkedIn with Jewish and Israeli interlocutors. Says I had dubbed it a trailer trash cult, a fusion of biblical illiteracy, apocalyptic fervor, and geopolitical delusion. Some of my Israeli counterparts, in a strange display of casual prejudice, alternatively referred to Ted Cruz and present Secretary of State Marco Rubio simply as, quote, the Mexican. Meaning Marco, I guess. Christian Zionism thrives on biblical illiteracy and selective scriptural appropriation. Though often presented as ancient and immutable, it is in fact a relatively modern phenomenon emerging alongside the rise of political Zionism in the late 19th century. So we're going to listen to that in just a second here. Rather than treating Scripture as sacrosanct, it distorts the biblical canon into a pliable tool, one that must conform to the ideological imperatives of the moment. In a nation such as the U.S., which has been at war for nearly 95% of its existence, this distortion often serves as theological cover for an endless war doctrine, with cherry-picked verses used for sanctity and used to sanctify geopolitical aggression and the confection of new enemies. So there you go. The blessings and curses of Genesis. So let's look at this briefly. Senator Ted Cruz invoked Genesis 12:3 to justify unwavering U.S. support for Israel, but his citation was conspicuously selective. The full verse reads, this is a quote from King James Version, "And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed." That's the whole verse. This is a prophetic promise given to the patriarch Abraham, pointing ultimately to his seed Jesus Christ. It is through Christ, according to Galatians 3:16, that all families of the earth are offered reconciliation with the divine. If that blessing is universal and messianic in scope, then where then is the ethnic or national exclusivity so often ascribed to modern-day Israel? And he says here, I've explored this topic in greater depth here, and here. So these are all links to various Substack posts. So just mention that. Ted Cruz's theological framework in practice aligns more closely with the Talmudic ethnocentrism than Christian soteriology. Consider this remarkable claim from Rabbi Chaim Richman directed at Christians. So again, directed at Christians. You guys are worshiping one Jew. That's a mistake. You should be worshiping every single one of us because we all die for your sins every single day. The Jewish people in the land of Israel are the bulwark against the orcs, okay? The orcs are coming not to a theater near you, but to your home. The orcs are coming not to a theater near you, but to your home. The orcs, of course, meaning the Muslims. So you can see here that this is where they want to take us here. This is where they want to go. They want to say that this is somehow some Tolkien novel. Yeah, the Palestinians is who they're calling the orcs. So yeah. Anyway, there's quite a bit here on this article. It's probably worth a read if you guys are interested in this. I'll just skip down here to the bottom. Endangering Christians worldwide. Why is it essential to confront and correct this narrative? Because the religious ideology peddled by Senator Cruz and his ilk bears no resemblance to authentic Christianity. It is a dangerous theological counterfeit, a den of wolves in sheep's clothing, precisely as Matthew 7:15 warned. Far from defending the faith, Christian Zionism actively endangers Christians across the globe. In its zeal to uphold Pax Americana, idolize the modern state of Israel, and force-fit current events into a contrived apocalyptic script, it sacrifices actual Christian communities on the altars of geopolitical and eschatological fantasy. As someone descended from one of the world's oldest Christian traditions, whose roots reach back even to the Old Testament, I say this plainly, have no fellowship with these murderous idolaters. 1 Corinthians 5:11. They invoke Christ, but they serve the ambition of empire, the delusions of man, and the devices of Satan. Is this what it means to be blessed? Then your church should beware of what it is really worshiping.
These are cutouts. These are fake groups. And all of these people and all these strategies are only benefiting the oligarchy in America and in the West. And that includes Israel too. These oligarchs are the ones that are benefiting. The people are not. We send our sons and daughters off to go and die for these foreign wars that benefit corporations and, yes, Israel too. Now people are figuring this out. Oh, actually, why are we all supposed to go die for Israel? Well, because it's God's chosen people, like Ted Cruz says when he failed in that debate with Tucker. Didn't even know the argument as to why would a atheist nation state created in 1948 that has no explicit reference at all to Christianity whatsoever, why would that have anything to do with the promises in Genesis 12, which Paul says in Galatians 3 apply to Christians? If you read Galatians 3, the promises of Genesis 12, 15, 17, and 22 are not to a atheist created nation state in 1948 or 1917. They're promises to those baptized into Christ. Literally the entire purpose of Galatians 3. That's the Israel of God according to Galatians. Galatians 6:16. Peace be upon you, the Israel of God, the church at Galatia. Matthew 21:43, when Jesus gives the parable, he says, the kingdom of God will be taken from you and given to a nation producing the fruits thereof. That's the church. The church is the spiritual nation. Peter says in 1 Peter 2, you are a chosen nation, a royal priesthood. The promises that were previously to the flesh state of Israel are now transferred to the church, which is the kingdom of God. The entire book of Hebrews is pointing out that those promises are now to those baptized into Christ, not to an unbelieving group of political Zionists and atheists. Those promises are not to those people. They're only in Christ, who is the capital seed, S, seed in Galatians 3. Genesis 12, the promise to Abraham and to his seed. Paul says, I will explain that for you, Christian world and all the other world. The seed in Genesis 12, 15, 17, and 22 is Jesus the Messiah. He is the seed, capital S, seed, not seeds, plural. In fact, Paul even says he does not say seeds as plural. So it's not Jews, unbelieving Jews, and Jesus. That would be seeds, plural. Can you hear me, evangelical boomers? I'm talking to you. Seed, capital S. So the only promise is if you're baptized in Christ. Otherwise, as Hosea prophesied, there is a divorce. I will give you a bill of divorce. Unbelieving Israel, you get a bill of divorce. Hebrews 13, the people that serve at the earthly tabernacle and temple don't have a right to eat at our altar. Hebrews 13, the Christian Eucharistic altar. Because he's talking about contrasting their eating of the animals and our eating of the sacrifice of Christ in Hebrews 13, clear as day. But Americans have been sold via the Schofield Bible, via the Oxford Imperial Press, pushing this idiot ideology of dispensationalism into America, the idea that the real church is actually just the atheist nation state of Israel. And because much of the evangelical Zionist world divorced itself from anything remotely in terms of historical Christianity.
Well, I just believe my Bible.
Yeah, but the Bible was put together by a historic group of people called a church. It doesn't fall out of heaven into your lap.
I believe in King James Bible.
Yeah, but King James was a monarch. You don't believe in monarchs? What are you talking about, evangelical?
I believe in King James. King James was a monarch appointed by God.
You don't believe in monarchs. I've never heard an evangelical talk about believing in monarchs, but you believe that King James gave you the Bible? This is idiocy. This is why you get used by people who send your sons and daughters off to die for atheist nation states, because you're goofy. You're goobers. You're goofy goobers, like SpongeBob says.
I'm a goofy goober. I want to die for Israel. I'm a goofy goober.
We gotta have subways in Iraq. We gotta have abortion and vaccines everywhere. That's what God wants. He wants that. No, the church, the historic church, is Israel. And that's what everybody in Christianity believed until the creation of dispensationalism out of John Nelson Darby and C.I. Scofield. And what do you know? That project just happens to support the idea of the creation of the nation state of Israel, whether it's the Balfour Declaration or whether it's 1948. And that's why Samuel Untermeyer in America was a big promoter and pusher of this Scofield dispensationalist Bible. And now a giant portion of American evangelicals have been duped by this And they have no idea how divorced this is from actual historic Christianity, which never taught this. No rapture nonsense. Well, Paul says in First Thessalonians that we'll be called up to the heavens. That's talking about the last day, the resurrection. There's nothing in there about a rapture before the tribulation. It's just the second coming. That's it. Where was dispensationalism prior to Schofield and Darby and the push by Oxford University to send this dumb Bible into America to dupe and to brainwash all the evangelicals, which was very successful. Very successful. And then you got people like John Hagee, who basically parrot and push this whole thing, millions of dollars through Kufi and all that stuff, which is his whole thing to promote. People don't remember this, but John Hagee had years ago, about 10, 15 years ago, a book come out called Jesus is Not the Messiah. It was such a scandal, he had to take it down and get rid of the book. By my new book, In Defense of Israel, Jesus is not the Messiah. The blood moons of the 7 gold bowl judgments of 1948, blah, blah, blah. All this nonsense has nothing to do with what the book of Revelation is actually about, right? John says, the beginning of the book, these things are soon to come to pass. Jesus says in Luke 21, you will not see one stone on top. You will see, you, my audience standing in front of me, this destroyed. Guess what? That happened in 70 AD. Okay. I think that it does talk about also the end of the world. There's a mirrored fulfillment. But Luke 21 makes it very clear that what's being discussed in the Olivet Discourse of Matthew 24, that happened in 70 AD. It's the destruction of Jerusalem. The book of Revelation even identifies the city. It's the city where our Lord was crucified. I wonder what it's talking about. It's talking about the Vatican. No, it's not talking about the Vatican. I think the Vatican is a horrible, evil institution. But it literally says it's the city spiritually called Sodom and Egypt where our Lord was crucified. It's Jerusalem. It's Israel. John is describing that Rome the beast, will destroy the whore, Israel, both of whom colluded to crucify Christ. So, I mean, if Americans want to be idiots and they want to buy into idiocy in terms of theology and end times nonsense, much of which is actually geopolitical propaganda to get you to fight what the wars that Ted Cruz and Netanyahu want. And that's exactly what we've been doing since 9/11, or even before that, for the last 25, 30 years, the neoconservative agenda, which absolutely loves all of this Israel worship stuff and the evangelical nonsense. Until people see through that, America will never get out of the stranglehold. This is overlooked. People think, oh, it's just politics. If we get on here and argue politics, I don't want to get into religion. I don't want to. Yeah, but religion is the stronghold, the stranglehold on the majority of the conservative American mindset to worship an atheist nation state, which is not what the Bible's talking about. And there's so many passages in the New Testament that talk about this, so many teachings of the ancient church, the church fathers that talk about this. It's really kind of wild that anybody would fall for this. I fell for it. When I was 19, I used to read John Hagee's Prophecy Study Bible. I thought that was right. I didn't know any better. Went to a Christian bookstore. I bought the Prophecy Study Bible. And I thought all these dispensationalist charts and all this stuff was, and then the more I read the Bible, it's like, there's not really a dual covenant theology. Like the New Testament's pretty clear. Paul says that all of the covenant promises are in Christ. There's not a separate track of, well, there's all these promises to an atheist nation state over here, but then there's all these other promises to Jesus, and God has plan B and plan C because this dispensation didn't work, so he's got to start again. And no, there's always only been one way to be saved, and that's in Christ. And that's why there's not 3 Abrahamic faiths. According to Galatians 3, there's only Christ. Abraham worshiped Jesus. In John 8, Jesus says that it's John 5 through 9. Read all those chapters where Jesus argues with the Pharisees. He's arguing that all the Old Testament saints believed and wrote about him. And that's why the Pharisees want to stone him. Because the Pharisees don't believe that. You're just a man. How could you have been there in, with Abraham? And Jesus is saying, who did Abraham eat with? Who did Moses eat with on top of the mountain? Me. It's not God the Father. No one sees the Father. Well, then who was this angel Lord they were meeting with? It's Jesus. That's the angel Lord. That destroys all this stupid dispensational nonsense that has a stranglehold on the American religious mindset. If you want to follow me, you can go to jasonelsis.com and subscribe. If you want to get my books, you can go to the shop there and get signed copies, and follow me on YouTube and Twitter.
All right. I hope you guys liked that. I thought Jay did an incredible breakdown there of what's actually going on and how, the evangelicals have been so mesmerized by this whole thing with Israel and Christian Zionism and all of this. So, yeah, Jay's doing some incredible work, I think, and I came across that video and thought that I would show it tonight just because he did a really good job, remarkable job, really, of laying it all out there with all of the scripture and everything. So hopefully if you guys have friends who are in that camp, you can point them to that information that he talked about in that video. So I thought it was really good. And yeah, I mean, Israel is a people. That's the bottom line. Israel's a people. And it's all about Jesus. That's what it comes back to. Yep, Jesus plus nothing, Emily says. Yeah, you don't need anything else. So you don't need a, he called them a unbelieving nation state, and that's exactly what they are. Israel, the country. So anyway, I thought that was good, and kind of goes hand in hand more or less with this RT article I found as well, talking about Christian Zionism. So anyway, okay, let's keep moving here. We've got quite a few more tabs to check out tonight, so let's see what we can find. U.S. divided on fate of Iran's enriched uranium after the strikes. Intelligence reports differ as the IAEA says the fuel could have been moved before the attacks, that the outlet says. It could have been moved, and not only could it have been moved, it most likely was. And they don't have the pictures here, but again, there were photos just a few weeks ago, satellite photos of lines and lines of vehicles moving materials before the attacks ever happened. So my guess is they really didn't lose much. It might have set them back a little bit. They probably lost the facilities, perhaps, or use of the facilities. But these nuclear facilities probably exist in more than these few places, is my thinking, and they will continue on. But on the other hand, that gives Israel an excuse to have an endless war, because hey, we didn't get it all, and we have to go back. We need regime change and all this stuff. That's just kind of what I'm thinking. U.S. intelligence officials are divided over the fate of Iran's enriched uranium stockpile following recent U.S. and Israeli airstrikes on key nuclear facilities. Hostilities began on June 13th when Israel launched strikes on Iran, claiming Tehran was close to developing a nuclear bomb. Yes, 2 weeks away, which has been denied by the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, and U.S. intelligence. U.S. joined the campaign on June 22nd, 622, interesting number, striking several nuclear facilities. A ceasefire brokered by Washington came into effect on Tuesday, and so far has been upheld. But we mentioned earlier tonight that it's possible that there was a drone attack, perhaps by Israel earlier today or during the course of the night. So we'll see. So far, according to this, so far it has been upheld. U.S. President Trump has said the strikes completely and totally obliterated, quote unquote, Iran's nuclear infrastructure. However, U.S. intelligence assessments and international watchdogs reportedly suggest that while the facilities were damaged, Iran's capability to resume its nuclear program remains. So there you go. That's, again, this is on RT. That is, in my opinion, probably most likely the reality here. But Israel would be all for that, because then they can continue their forever war. Oh my gosh, now they're only 1 week away from a nuclear bomb or whatever. I don't know. It's gonna be time compressed down now. We've got to do something now. We've got to change regimes in Iran now. That seems to be where they would be headed with it, I would think. But anyway, I thought that was worth mentioning here. And then I found this article too on RT, because it puts the perspective here a little bit on, I guess, probably, Trump meeting with Kim Jong-un quite a few years ago now, back in his first term, you can tell Kim Jong-un really liked him. And apparently he wants to be just like him. He has now created the first world-class tourist resort in North Korea. So you're going to book your plane flights now? Go to North Korea, where if you get in trouble, they, punish you by throwing you into a cage full of really hungry dogs and let the dogs have their way with you. Would you like to go to North Korea? Does that sound good? Hotels on the East Coast can accommodate around 20,000 people, according to state-run KCNA news agency. I think everything's state-run over there. North Korea has opened a sprawling world-class resort on its East Coast. The nation's leader, Kim Jong-un, has hailed it as a harbinger of paradises to be built in different parts of the country. So it sounds to me like he's trying to be Donald Trump of North Korea, which is hilarious to me. So here's the video. I'm not going to play the audio because it's just music, and again, I can't really stream music over a live stream and be able to keep the live stream running, just depending on how content ID works on YouTube and so forth. But you can see some people going down the water slides here and trying to surf and falling over immediately. So this is just some of the footage here that they use for their promo piece. The resort's opening was attended by Russia's ambassador to North Korea and the embassy staff, who KCNA described as special guests. The two countries have significantly improved ties in recent years. North Korean troops assisted Russia in repelling Ukrainian incursion in the Kursk region earlier this year. According to this little blurb here on this page, I was just letting the video play. So you can see it's quite the celebration. Kim Jong-un, Rocket Man, as Trump called him. So it's kind of funny in a way. But yeah, it looks like he's trying to be Donald Trump of the North Korean Empire. So the surfing, I guess they're probably going to have to work on that, because they're only staying on the surfboards for like 1 second, maybe. So anyway, that's kind of a funny article I found earlier. North Korea and the world-class resort, and they're trying to bring in tourists. Although I don't know how you would ever get the okay to go there, and then if you go there, I don't know how you would necessarily get out. I don't think I would go to North Korea personally. Anyway, okay, let's look at Daily Crow. Now, this is one of the sites that I go to every week for a lot of the top news articles. It's a really good site, dailycrow.com. It's kind of random stuff, more or less. And I got through part of it tonight. I kind of ran out of time with other projects I had going on. So I thought we would just kind of peruse this a little bit in live time. And well, I'll edit this out in post if it ends up being a zero. But let's just take a look at some of the headlines here. Where I left off was right here. The Strait of Hormuz, incoming global energy crisis. This is a Armstrong Economics article. He says here, I provided the declassified documents for the Ben Gurion Canal Project, a trade route through Palestine and Israel that could only be created by obliterating Gaza. Declassified documents reveal that the U.S. Department of Energy was planning to take extreme measures to make this canal possible. So this is an Armstrong Economics article. Might be worth a look. Here is a Dustin Nemos on the SGT report. Link on Rumble. We've got this screenshot here. If we decided to bomb America, if we suddenly decide to drop 400 to 500 atomic bombs on them all at once, it could be that we'll rule the world. It could be that we'll reach our destiny. That will be a light unto the nations, that women will dance in the vineyards. They'll break into dances. We'll build the temple. We'll offer sacrifices. Maybe that's how it should be. According to this translated from Hebrew post from an Israeli. Lovely, huh? They love us so much. And we've given them how many trillions and trillions of dollars at this point? One symbolic bomb in Washington will remind Trump that he is not omnipotent and will restore our national honor. Again, according to another Israeli person here posting on X. So, they seem to have forgotten how much aid we have given their country over the years and decades, haven't they? Not too surprising, actually. And they do have the president of the United States. We already know who that is, and that is not Donald Trump when it comes to foreign policy. Fill in the blank. You know who it is. You know who I'm talking about. Donald Trump may be the president of the U.S. in the domestic stuff, but not in the foreign stuff. Nope, that would be Bibi. President Bibi. And then this article here says, Israel doomsday clock intact. Iranian media, West Jerusalem has claimed it targeted the digital display in Tehran. That's an RT article. Everything you need to know about the Iran and Israel war. That's a Tehran Times article. Where is Iran's uranium? Top secret leaked U.S. intel says core nuclear components are still intact. Zero Hedge article. Then this was quite the buzz there for about, 12-hour period a few days ago. Breaking another presidential norm, Trump drops the F-bomb on camera. Yeah, I did hear that. I don't know if you guys heard that. This incident appears to mark a notable departure from presidential norms, as it's reported that Trump may be the first president to deliberately drop an F-bomb on camera. Yeah, but he was talking about Israel, so who could blame him? He was pretty ticked off, at least at the moment. And this is that guy that I mentioned earlier, Arizona pastor who was crucified by that guy. Again, note the tattoos. That would be in Hebrew. Gosh. Israel declares Central Bank of Iran a terrorist organization. Of course they do. And then, what else here? Crisis warning as flesh-eating insects are found invading the U.S. through Mexican migrant route. So that's a Daily Mail article. Patrick Byrne article on Forbidden Knowledge TV. Countering the Chinese absorption of the U.S. Times of Israel article. Threatening to slap U.S. again. Iran's Khamenei claims Trump exaggerated the strikes. Speaks for the first time after a week of silence. Supreme leader says America only intervened for fear Iran would destroy Israel. Asserts attacks on nuclear sites were insignificant. That's a Times of Israel article. Yeah, apparently, I've heard, I don't know if it's true, Khamenei apparently isn't doing real well health-wise. But he did come out and threaten Trump recently as well. Iran surrender, a claim far too big for a U.S. president to utter. Again, that's a Tehran Times article. Exclusive. Israel planned false flag operation on U.S. soil. I would say AKA something very similar, at least, to 9/11. So unfortunately, that's what I'm thinking is going to be next. Hopefully I'm wrong about that, but it does seem to be where it's headed. Disturbingly, gene therapy was once known as genetic modification of humans, according to Dr. Tenpenny. That's a Rumble video. Family owns 40-acre farm since 1850. And the government says, sorry, we're seizing your land to build apartments for third world Browns. That's a Daily Mail article. Bill Gates quietly seizes total control of U.S. water supply. This is a People's Voice TV article. I don't think that would be believable, personally. Some of their articles are highly questionable. Okay, and then YouTube video. The ceasefire is the setup. What comes after is the real war. Trump does victory lap after Supreme Court slaps down activist judges in the birthright citizenship LGBTQ school book cases. We mentioned that earlier. That's a Zero Hedge article, though. Nuking Nagasaki, the post-war consensus, and targeting Christians in Japan. There's another article here. Peter Thiel and the Antichrist, the Christian argument for full-blown transhumanism, ? The ways in which you find yourself saying the world is unrecognizable from what it was pre-2020, 100 times that, and that is what you will see in 3 years from now, according to this article. New York Times article, actually. Zoran Mamdani proposes taxing whiter neighborhoods in New York City, recognizing the JQ is one thing, but the enemy of your enemy is not your friend. They hate white people, and white people are more concerned with being called racist than pointing that out or collectivizing any meaningful way. 6% of the world population is being genocided, and when you are all gone, they will still call you racist. That's true. That's a Newsweek article, actually, on Mamdani, who is running for mayor of New York City and likely to win. He's a Muslim. Win as mayor in New York City. All right. And then Israel pummels South Lebanon in biggest airstrike since November's Hezbollah ceasefire. So they've ceasefire, I guess, is more or less going on with Israel not bombing Iran, supposedly, but they've decided to bomb Lebanon instead. That makes sense. Iran releases new Epstein tape proving Israel is threatening to assassinate Trump. So again, that's a People's Voice article. Although I think there is some truth to that. I do have an article pulled up on that, and we'll look at that in a minute. Got to find it. It's on my mini tabs here. Here's a Donald Trump post on Truth Social. It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MIGA, M-I-G-A. And then the joke here was, of course, he means in this post, supposedly, make Iran great again, but we all know what it actually means. MIGA. That would be make Israel great again, not Iran. That's the joke there, and a lot of truth to that, I think. So, war is peace. And this is something that I happened to mention last week, right? Straight out of 1984. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. You guys remember those lines? Well, this is a global research article. War is peace, obfuscating the truth. Fake news and World War III. The dangers of nuclear war. World War III is terminal. Albert Einstein understood the perils of nuclear war and the extinction of life on Earth, which has already started with the radioactive contamination resulting from depleted uranium, not to mention Fukushima. Remember Fukushima, don't you? I mean, I think it's still happening, right? That hasn't changed. So speaking of Einstein, there was a quote here. I know not what weapons World War III will be fought, according to Einstein, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. That's a pretty powerful statement from Einstein and goes way back. I'm sure you've heard it. I came across another one this week, though, an Einstein quote that was really good. And it was actually in Dane's broadcast for Global Alert News this week. The difference between stupidity and genius is that genius has its limits. Think about that. I love that. All right, it says the media, the intellectuals, the scientists, the politicians, in chorus, obfuscate the untold truth, namely, that war using nuclear warheads destroys humanity. Fake news has become real news, and real news by the independent online media is now tagged as Russian propaganda. In turn, the independent media, including Global Research, which is the site I'm on here, is the object of censorship via the search engines and social media. What we are dealing with is a war against the truth. Objective reporting on the dangers of a third world war is being suppressed, but why? The future of humanity is at stake. The danger of nuclear annihilation is not front page news. The unfolding consensus among Pentagon war planners is that a third world war is, quote, winnable. Nuclear war is an instrument of peace. Isn't that lovely? War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. So I'm just sort of quoting 1984 again, but that is part of this article. There's quite a bit here on globalresearch.ca. It's a good site. Used to look at the headlines often on this show and kind of got away from it for a while, but we might go back to that. They usually have some good articles on there. I thought this one was kind of interesting. It's called What the Human Brain Sees That AI Can't. New study reveals our unique edge in navigating the world. Or rock climbing, I guess. Most of us have probably never paused to consider the awe-inspiring complexity of our brain's ability to effortlessly decide whether to walk, climb, swim, or when encountering a new environment. In an instant, without conscious thoughts, our brain size up a scene and tells us how we can move through it, a feat that even the most advanced AI systems struggle to replicate. However, according to new research, this remarkable ability we take for granted daily relies on specialized neural processes that artificial intelligence has yet to replicate despite its rapid advances. Researchers from the University of Amsterdam have uncovered how the human brain encodes so-called locomotive action affordances, quote unquote. So locomotive action affordances, the opportunities for movement that our surroundings present. Published in PNAS Neuroscience, which is a website, and I guess probably they probably have a paper or something as well, maybe a think tank or something. Their work provides fresh insights into how our brains instantly recognize whether we can walk through a field, climb over rocks, or dive into water all at a glance. Perhaps most strikingly, the study highlights how deep neural networks, DNNs, AI systems inspired by biological brains fail to replicate this fundamental aspect of human perception. The team's findings point to a profound difference between natural and artificial intelligence, with implications for everything from robotics to self-driving cars. I call them, repeat with me, I call them self-crashing cars. While AI systems have made enormous strides in recognizing objects and classifying scenes, they still fail to understand what those scenes afford regarding physical action. Even the best AI models don't give exactly the same answers as humans, even though it's such a simple task for us. Study co-author and computational neuroscientist Dr. Iris Groen explained in a press release, this shows that our way of seeing is deeply intertwined with how we interact with the world. We connect our perception to our experience in a physical world. AI models can't do that because they only exist in the computer. Yes. So this goes on. There's quite a bit here. I thought that was kind of interesting and pretty neat. Pro-humanity, anti-computers and AI type of story, and I'm all for that. thedebrief.org is where that is. Again, we'll link to these articles in the Substack post. I know you've heard me say that a bunch, but we will. We really will. That'll be Tuesday at some point. So anyway, let's see. Vigilant Fox on Substack. Paris Music Festival descends into chaos. And get this, 145 people were pricked in a syringe attack, but reportedly 1,500 people were injured. How about that? A syringe attack in Paris. Do you guys know about that? Millions were in the streets across France on Saturday for a music festival known as, I won't try and pronounce it, Fête de la Musique, I guess. That wasn't too bad, I guess. When chaos broke out in the streets with reported brawls, clashes with police, and stabbings, leaving hundreds and thousands injured. Hundreds or thousands injured. Yes, so that is some more of the wonderful, importing of the Muslims and so forth into France. More cultural enrichment, as they say. 145 people were reported assaulted in so-called syringe attacks with the suspected intention of being to intoxicate one with a date rape drug. So that apparently was what the syringe attack was. A local mayor said the festival had broken all attendance records. Per France 24, which is one of the news outlets, I guess, France 24, nearly 150 people reported being assaulted with syringes across France during its annual summer music festival, with Paris police reporting 13 cases in the capital alone. 12 suspects in the attacks were arrested. The Interior Ministry said more than 370 people were detained nationwide on various other charges. Additionally, unconfirmed reports circulating on social media suggest that there was massive violence, leaving 1,500 people injured. Yes, well, that's what you get when you import your cultural enrichment, and what do you expect? So anyway, that's a Substack post actually on Vigilant Fox on Substack. I thought this was pretty telling as well. This is a question, I guess, probably to ChatGPT. How many ceasefires has Israel violated? Numbers only. So that was the request to ChatGPT from someone. So the screenshot here says, no definitive numbers available due to conflicting reports and lack of comprehensive verified data across all ceasefires. Estimates for specific ceasefires include 2025, the Gaza ceasefire. So this is just one ceasefire. 962 violations reported by Palestinian sources. That's just one. 2023 Gaza ceasefire. Upwards of 100 violations reported by the UN and CNN. And the 2012 through 2014 ceasefire, 191 violations reported by the Visualizing Palestine group. So just in those three ceasefires alone, you have well over 1,000, 1,200 violations by Israel. But it's okay when they do it. They're Israel. They're God's chosen people. All right, let's see. WLT report. Let me just look at the headlines. Chemtrails are all over the news recently. Have you noticed? 10 years ago, when I walk and talk about chemtrails, people would look at me like I had three heads. There's still a lot of extreme cognitive dissonance by many people on this topic, but many more are waking up and seeing it plain as day for what it is. Spraying heavy metals in the skies above us, day in, day out, all day long. Yes, it's just to save the planet, you know. But now they're doing more than just noticing. Some are starting to take action. I want to preface this right up front by saying I am not encouraging any confrontations, but if you do intend to get active and get involved, do it like the lady I'm about to show you. Calm, cool, firm, but polite and non-violent. Non-violent. Let me introduce you to Kat. Kat woke up to the reality of chemtrails during the COVID lockdowns, and she's quickly become very active in digging into this mess and starting to fight back. She's tracking the planes, recording the flight patterns, documenting which planes are doing it when they take off and when they land. And one of her videos went absolutely viral when she confronted two of the pilots. So I didn't actually pull that up, but it is here, I guess. Chemtrail pilot confronted goes viral. Saw an SGT report. So you guys can look this up if you're interested in checking it out. President Trump now exposing chemtrails. I personally don't think he knows about that. From what I gather, he may have heard about it, but that's about where it ends. I mentioned that last week. RFK Jr. definitely knows all about it, but he's blaming it on it being in the jet fuel. And I am of the opinion that it can't possibly be, because if it was in the jet fuel, the planes would not be able to fly. They would literally be burning up. They depend on absolute pure jet fuel, Jet A or whatever different forms of fuel that they use. And that was backed up by Kristen Megan recently on an interview I saw where she said, too, that she likes the fact that RFK Jr. is talking about geoengineering and that it is becoming a mainstream story now. That's great. But she disagreed that it could possibly be in the jet fuel. It can't be. But it can be, and we do know that there are visible nozzles on a lot of these planes. There are pictures of them, and we've archived them at great length on geoengineeringwatch.org. So I would just mention that. And they're shown in the dimming, and they're shown in many videos. So anyway, this is a WLT report article on this lady confronting chemtrail pilots. I don't know how you can track these planes. Apparently, she's doing it to some degree, although I don't know. I'm a little dubious about that because those planes, for the most part, from what I can tell, transponders are turned off. So if that's the case, you can't track them. So she may be tracking some of the smaller planes and or some of these planes that are indeed dropping the spray streams into the jet exhaust as it's coming out the back of the plane. It's not coming out of the engines directly, but it's a nozzle a lot of times that they're spraying the different chemicals, dropping it down into the jet exhaust as the air is being moved through the high bypass turbofan. It's being pushed through there so quickly, it's just dropped down right there in the exhaust stream. And I do tend to think that's the way that it works for the most part, and those would be commercial airliners that are doing that. But that is not to implicate the actual pilots and the crew, because they don't need to know. There's no reason that they would need to know. It's all automated. All those systems are automated on those planes. They kick on when they reach certain altitudes. They kick off when they descend from those altitudes and so forth. That's personally what I believe and what I've found out. So take that for what it's worth. Anyway, okay, and then Forbidden Knowledge TV. This is a site that I pull up pretty often. The top articles on here: NYC Democrats in hot water. So this is the new socialist Democrat for mayor candidate. He hasn't won yet, but a lot of people think that he will. One of the main reasons people are going to this guy, especially young people, are going towards this person instead of whoever the Republican nominee might be. A lot of the people are excited about this guy because he's a socialist, but he is very much anti-Israel, and people are really tuning into the fact that Israel is not doing us any favors, and therefore, if someone is for Israel, that's going to drive voters away, and so they're flocking to this guy, supposedly. That's just what I've noticed. NYC Democrats in hot water. So that's what this article is about, this particular guy. Democrat Socialist New York mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani is a child of the elite. His father, Mahmoud, is a professor at the Ivy League Columbia University. Yeah, and apparently he's very much pro-gay, pro-LGBTQ stuff, which that's not surprising. He's running to be mayor in New York City. You would about have to be, I suppose, at that level as a Democrat, right? But the problem is he's supposedly a Muslim. So clearly he's not a practicing Muslim if he's for all of that stuff, because they tend to throw you off of buildings in Islamic countries, in Muslim countries, when you do that. All right, and then let's see. Oh yeah, here's the Patrick Byrne article I mentioned earlier, countering the Chinese absorption of the USA. Probably be good. He puts out some good information. Here is Dr. Ed Group, who was a, I think, one or two time guest on Lost Arts Radio a long time ago. This article is Nanotech, Bioweapons, and EMF, Dr. Group's Shock Findings and Solutions. He puts out some really good information that might be worth a look. And then this one, Tulsi Gabbard versus the Swamp. So far, I think the Swamp is winning, from what I can tell. I mean, not just against her, but against him, her boss. That seems to be where it's headed. All right, so those are Forbidden Knowledge TV articles. And then, let's see, Leo Hohmann's Substack, execs from Palantir, Meta, and OpenAI being brought into the U.S. Army. That doesn't sound good. But yeah, they're bringing AI into the military, even to a greater degree than it already was. Trump, the dealmaker, emerges from Israel-Iran war looking more powerful than ever, this says. I don't really agree with that, but whatever. Turkey is the wild card in Middle East, and its leader just told us whose side it's going to be on in World War III. Yeah, Israel's side. That's who's. What freedoms will be traded away in the fog of America's next big war? So those are the headlines on Leo's Substack, leohohmann.substack.com. And then a couple wine press articles that I found. Maine NBC News affiliate hosts drag queen to give the weather report. So if you're in Maine, you've probably been watching the drag queen weather report, because it is Pride Month after all. So if you want a deadly sin to parade around in front of everybody for a full month, then Pride would be your month, and that would be June. Meteorologists at the station praised the drag queen, teaching him how to present the weather forecast and repeatedly calling the drag queen, quote, mother. So this is what it's come to, apparently, in Maine. So that's not good. That's on the Wine Press Substack, and then this one is as well. Probably heard about this, I would think. RFK Jr. faces blowback from his own supporters after promoting wearables and Make American Biotech Advance as MAHA movement sputters. What amounts to technocratic surveillance should not be normalized, encouraged, and promoted at the federal level, said Children's Health Defense, RFK's former organization that he ran. So even his own organization saying he shouldn't be doing this. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is currently beginning to face a backlash from his own core audience and support group, as he's apparently betraying what was once believed to be Make America Healthy Again, a cleaner food and agricultural system, and restrictions and more stringent testing for the pharmaceutical industry, broadly speaking, has now turned into the exact opposite and then some. Wine Press has covered this repeatedly, covering signs that the movement was already compromised before Kennedy even took the position at HHS, an example being him building rapport with Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla. Trump's chief of staff, Susie Wiles, is also a lobbyist for big pharmaceutical and agricultural companies, further questioning just how effective the MAHA movement is going to be. What I was looking for the information about the wearables. That was the new information from this week. Yeah, the biggest thing is it has pushed his supporters over the edge is that Bobby's emphatic push for Americans to embrace wearables to track and monitor health, and the inclusion of more telehealth and AI doctors and DNA databasing. So that's not good. In a post on X, Kennedy said, quote, "Wearables put the power of health back in the hands of the American people. We're launching one of the largest HHS campaigns in history to encourage their use so every American can take control of their health one data point at a time. It's a key part of our mission to make America healthy again." So that was his quote. That was what he put on X. So I completely disagree with all that. You don't want a wearable because it emits RF, and then you're constantly bathing yourself in basically like a Bluetooth signal. It would be horrendous for your health. And I know he's got to know this, so there's got to be money involved in him recommending this, I would think. What, to Apple or Samsung or something like that? I don't know. Just a guess. But he says, my vision is that every American will be wearing a wearable in the next 4 years. Well, this American will not be. I'm sure many of you guys probably agree with that. Anyway, that's on Wine Press and their Substack. All right, Gateway Pundit articles. I hadn't really looked too much at this yet, but they do have an article about the situation in Idaho earlier today. 2 killed after active shooter opens fire on firefighters in Idaho. FBI tactical teams deployed. It says, update, shooter was neutralized and the shelter in place has been lifted. So if you guys missed this, I mentioned it earlier near the beginning of the broadcast, where apparently either fires were set on purpose or there were fires and first responders got there and then they were subsequently shot and killed. At least 2 firefighters were killed by going to the fire and trying to do their job. So yes. Okay, and then this is the other thing I knew I saw a headline on at some point here. A fatwa was issued calling for Muslims to assassinate President Trump, issued by the Ayatollah. So there you go. So Trump's days are numbered. And they actually may be, who knows. Not that Iran will actually do it, but now, see, that gives the deep state a really good excuse to, surface to air missile Air Force One or something like that. Who knows? So we will see, but I don't think that's good news. All right, and then I found several Not the Bee articles. Usually there are a little bit more, some of them a little more lighthearted. We'll see. Let's take a look at what I pulled up here. DeSantis says the alligator Alcatraz in the middle of the Everglades will be ready to house illegal aliens by next week. So we thought this was a great idea when we showed it to you a few weeks back. Florida wants to build an ICE detention facility at an abandoned airport in the middle of the Everglades. They're calling it Alligator Alcatraz. Do you guys know about this? Says, and now DeSantis says it'll be good to go starting next week. Florida is stepping up to help increase deportations and fulfill Trump's mandate to enforce immigration law. Alligator Alcatraz is a secure facility in Florida that will stage criminal illegal aliens for efficient mass deportation. So he gave Steve Doocy from Fox News, I guess, a little tour. This guy's excited. Homeland Security is on board. So this is their post about Alligator Alcatraz. Florida proposes new low-cost prison for criminal aliens at an abandoned airport surrounded by the Everglades. People get out. There's not much waiting for them. So, yeah, that would be alligators and snakes. This 30 square mile area, here it is here, 30 square mile area is completely surrounded by the Everglades, presents an efficient, low-cost opportunity to build a temporary detention facility because you don't need to invest that much in the perimeter. If people get out, there's not much waiting for them other than alligators and pythons. Nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. Jack's very excited about it. Alligator Alcatraz will be ready next week, and so will the alligators. Here's a volunteer here. Look, I'm here for the Border Patrol job, he says. Yeah, he'll fill his belly, too. All right, well, that's not the B article. I thought that was kind of silly. The alligators are ready for their work to begin. And then this one's kind of creepy and odd. Researchers create swarms of nanobots that can be deployed up your nose to treat sinus infections. Oh, heck no. That's what I'm going to say on that. Chinese scientists, of course, have reportedly... Yeah, it says, of course. Chinese scientists, of course, have reportedly built nanoscale robots that can move through the sinus canal, clearing blockages and killing infection-causing bacteria. The study was published in Science Robotics. Here's how the little buggers work. Yeah, you can see the animation here. The latest breakthrough, based on animal rather than human trials, so we don't know for sure if this will work, involves magnetic particles doped with copper atoms, which clinicians insert with a catheter before guiding to their target under a magnetic field. So they have to use a magnet to get them to the proper place. This is going from bad to worse. The swarms can be heated up by reacting to light from an optical fiber that's also inserted into the body as part of the therapy. Well, you'd have to have really bad sinus infections to do this. This allows the microbots to loosen up and penetrate viscous pus that forms a barrier to the infection site. The light source also prompts the micro robots to disrupt bacterial cell walls and release reactive oxygen species that kills the bacteria. So far, these bots have only been deployed in animal trials, but they've had pretty good success rate. So I wonder how they give the animals a sinus infection. The robots were capable of eradicating bacteria from pig sinuses and could clear infections in live rabbits with no obvious tissue damage. Of course, there are some drawbacks to the nanobots. The big one is that there is no way to ensure that they're all removed once they're in there, which the researchers admit could lead to future unforeseen complications. Maybe kind of like this, where you lose your nose. They also say that another major hurdle that they face is, of course, people's fear of injecting tiny machines up their nose. You think? I definitely have a fear of injecting tiny machines up my nose. But there are some scientists building even more complicated nanobots that are capable of navigating the bloodstream, and some can self-replicate indefinitely. These crazy scientists are giddy with the idea that will one day replace all our medicine with nanobots, making repairs and fighting disease. Former Google engineer Ray Kurzweil has been remarkably accurate in his technology predictions, thinks that they will extend our lives indefinitely by 2031. Nanobots. Robots. Because nothing bad ever happens in sci-fi when men use machines to try and achieve immortality. If I'm honest, just thinking about nanobots crawling around inside me makes me itchy all over. Just like this guy. So anyway, that was very peculiar and certainly odd. But don't think people won't try it. I will not be on that list. No volunteers from me. All right, and then check out all these anti-white posts from the frontrunner for the New York City mayor race. This is a guy I mentioned earlier, Zoran Mandami. I'm starting to think that the Muslim socialist might be racist or something. So this is one of his posts. On the phone while walking to work, when a white guy sitting on a nearby ledge decides it's a good time to let me know what's on his mind. So yes, Mandami has been posting racist and anti-white musings for over a decade. I guess white New Yorkers hate themselves so much they'll vote for him anyways. They will. Just so they can feel good about their racism that they supposedly have. Let's see. The price is white, according to the New York Post here. Mandami says that white neighborhoods should pay higher property taxes. Because that's fair. This is no joke. It says, look at the first bullet point in this screenshot from his campaign website. Zoran is proposing taxing people more based on race, specifically white people. So yeah, that's what we just said. Shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods. So that is one of his cornerstones of his campaign. He loves it. And he's all for the LGBTQABCXYZ people, and may in fact be one of them from what I've seen. Walking around shirtless with an apron on in some footage that I've seen. If he were over in, say, I don't know, Iran, Saudi Arabia, most likely he would have already been tossed off of a building by now. I'm just guessing. That's usually how it works over there, though, if you're not someone devoted to the scriptures, meaning the Islamic scriptures. All right, and then a couple more from not to be here. Dems force Senate staffers to spend all night reading the big, beautiful bill out loud, and they're still going. Updates here. Staff finally finished reading the bill around 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, this was earlier today, so they did finally finish it. Thousands of pages here. Breaking, Senate staff finished reading the one big, beautiful bill after a whopping 16 hours. Chuck Schumer forced him to do it all night. Of course, the room was basically empty and nobody listened to the whole thing. Last night, the Senate voted 51-49 to advance the big, beautiful bill into its final phases before passage. So they voted for it, but nobody read it, except for the staffers. The bill will now have 20 hours of floor debate, where the Democrats will probably yell a lot, but it only requires 51 votes to pass. Then it heads for the House for reconciliation with their version of the bill. The House also has a razor-thin margin, 215 to 214. So House Majority Leader Johnson wants to approve it as is. There was a ton of drama late on Saturday night, mostly because Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Tom Tillis went full rhino, so J.D. Vance had to go to the Senate to rally the troops and prepare to be the tie-breaking vote. So I think this is bad news if this gets passed. Yes, there's some good stuff in it, from what I understand, but there's a ton of pork in it and lots of extra stuff that doesn't need to be in it. But of course, that's what they want. That's why they have so many pages and no one reads it and they just vote on it. That's just what they do. So instead of having single issue bills, which is what they should do. But of course they don't, because that would be no pork involved in that. Speed is the name of the game with the big, beautiful bill. If the bill does not get passed before Congress breaks for Independence Day, which technically starts on Monday, it will not only be embarrassing to many Republican lawmakers as they face their constituents at parades and other events, but it will remove the momentum that Republicans need to get major items on their agenda passed. To this end, the unelected Senate parliamentarian appointed by Democrat Harry Reid in 2012 has spent the last week stripping the bill of key provisions, saying they don't follow the rules for being included in a budget bill like this and need to be passed on their own. So who knows what's being stripped out. I was looking to see about the reading here. Not wanting to waste an opportunity where Republicans are busy shooting themselves in the feet, Democrats tried a last-minute stall tactic on their own. Chucky Schumer, who just got back from the hospital, I didn't realize that, decided to slow down the bill's passage by forcing it to be read aloud on the Senate floor. This will take at least 15 hours, followed by debate, followed by the vote, followed by House deliberation. If you're good at math, you know that the vote is going to come down to the wire. So yes, Chucky Schumer decided to have staffers read the whole thing. So if anybody listens to the whole thing, then they would know what was in it. But the people in Congress will still vote on it and not know what's in it. That's the way it works. That's a Not to Be article. And then this one, this is, to me, a really cool story. Just because I was a fan as a kid. I compiled videos of the Kentucky town that jumped a replica of the General Lee over a water fountain. America is an amazing place, from Somerset, Kentucky. So the General Lee, Dukes of Hazzard. Are you ready? And he did it. And he did it. Let me enlarge the picture here so you can see it a little better. And there's a couple other angles. How about that? That is crazy. Anyway, yes, the General Lee jumps through a water fountain in Somerset, Kentucky. And of course, there's some, I guess, probably a clip from the TV show way back when. And then, yeah, there's some other angles where they're, like this one, I think, is when the car comes through and lands. General Lee replica from the Dukes of Hazzard jumps the Somerset Fountain in Kentucky. There it is. You can see it's completely trashed and almost hits a cameraman right there. But he did successfully stick the landing, as this says. So pretty wild. So this is what they do on a summer night in Somerset, Kentucky, which I've never been to, but I have seen the signs traveling before quite a few times. So I don't think it's all that far from where I'm sitting, but not gonna lie, this makes me want to move to Somerset. This person says. So anyway, pretty cool. If you're Dukes of Hazzard fans, you will get it, which I was as a kid for sure. Anyway, and then speaking of Dukes of Hazzard, a little sad news here, I suppose. This was just 3 days ago. Dukes of Hazzard actor Richard Hurst, who this was Deputy Cletus Hogg on the Dukes of Hazzard, has died at 79. But he was still active in some of the appearances that the cast would do from time to time. And it says Rick passed away on Thursday in Los Angeles. His death was unexpected. Death is unclear. So, but he was 79. Rick was scheduled to make an appearance at Cooter's Place in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee on July 3rd. So that's in East Tennessee out by Gatlinburg. I've been there. Not to Cooter's Place, but I do know Pigeon Forge. On Thursday morning, the museum said on Facebook, due to the unforeseen circumstances, Rick was unable to appear. They would reschedule. Yes, well, I don't think he will be rescheduling. Anyway, that's sad. Rick's role was Boss Hogg's cousin. Dukes of Hazzard show first played in the late 70s and reprised through the 80s. So, and then he had other roles in other TV shows at the time. So anyway, and then I will show you one more thing here. I do have a very distant connection to the Dukes of Hazzard, and that is through this guy, who's a web client of mine. He's a web client of mine, and you may recognize his last name. He is the grandson of Waylon Jennings, who sang the theme song, Just a Good Old Boys, from that TV show, from Dukes of Hazzard. So this is Way Jennings. This is his grandson. And he's one of my clients. This is a website that I built for him, actually. So if you want to check out some really good music, Way Jennings is that, and he's very much along the lines of his grandfather, Waylon. And in fact, he sounds a lot like him. These are some of his videos. I'm looking to see if we have it on here. I don't think we do. There is a video, you could probably find it on YouTube pretty easily, of Way Jennings with the cast of Dukes of Hazzard. So Tom Wopat and Catherine Bach and a few other people who are singing together, and they were singing the Waylon Jennings hit, Good Old Boys. And then here's his tour dates and stuff like that. He tours all over the U.S. And then here's some of his songs and so forth. So this is a little promo here, I guess, for my friend Way Jennings. But he's got some good family lineage. So I just thought I would mention that and point you to his website if you want to go visit it and listen to some pretty cool music. WayJennings.com. Yeah, it's WHEY. So anyway, that's my one and only connection to the Dukes of Hazzard, which isn't really much of one, but I kind of think that's cool. So yeah, it's too bad to hear about Richard Hurst, though. That's kind of a bummer, but it was interesting about Somerset, Kentucky, and then the jumping of the General Lee. That was wild. All right, and then let's see here. Back to some of the other crazy news that we tend to report on this show. So this is just an InfoWars article. I won't bother reading more about this, but this is more about the Anthony and Metcalf situation. Carmelo Anthony, teenager accused of stabbing fellow schoolboy Austin Metcalf to death in track meet in Texas, has applied for a state-appointed public defender, even though he's got about $600,000 from GoFundMe. So figure that one out. Obviously, the family wants to keep all the money, pocket it all, and live the wealthy life, and not have to spend a dime of it on lawyers, and instead they want us, the taxpayers, to pay their legal bills. And when it's very blatantly clear to anyone with half of a brain that this guy did it. He killed him. It's on video. End of story. So we'll see where it goes. Terror alert. Ayatollah issues fatwa calling for Muslims to assassinate Trump. So this is the other place that I saw this, and it's on InfoWars here. I didn't realize he was that old. The ruling Ayatollah is 98. So I don't think he will be doing the fatwa himself. Do you? No, not at 98. He won't be holding the rocket-propelled launcher, knocking the plane out of the sky, because that's probably what's going to happen. I hope not, but man, it's not looking good. John Ratcliffe, AIPAC's Manchurian candidate in Trump's inner circle. Why hasn't the CIA director briefed the public on a deep state purge at the CIA? Why hasn't the DOJ announced prosecutions for bad actors en masse? Well, yeah, that would be because they aren't prosecuting anybody. They're just letting them break the law and be held unaccountable. That seems to be the way the Trump administration is working. I mean, really. In a stunning expose, investigative journalist Max Blumenthal has unmasked CIA Director John Ratcliffe as a product of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, allegedly groomed to serve as a loyal puppet for Israeli intelligence within President Trump's inner circle. So once again, back to that little country in the Middle East causing so much trouble, and we have to support everything they do because they are God's chosen people, and we're not. And we have to give them all of our money, blood, and treasure. I think not. All right, and then this one I won't bother playing, but I would recommend watching it. The Star of David controversy goes mega viral. Is the Seal of Solomon satanic? So this is Pastor Greg Locke here. Many of you guys heard of him. He's a pastor in the Nashville area where I am. I've never seen him in person. I've only seen some of his videos and stuff. And I don't think that he's necessarily a bad pastor. I do think that he is so Christian Zionist, it's not even funny. So that aspect of his teaching, I can't stomach that. But yeah, he is a Israel first kind of guy for sure. So that is kind of what this is about. He's trying to call Alex out for being wrong about the Star of David and its originations, where it all came from. But Alex does his homework. Many of you guys, even if you don't like Alex, most people will at least acknowledge that he really knows what he's talking about, and he's done his research. So I do think this is worth watching. I won't bother playing it tonight, but it is there if you guys want to watch it. And it's an InfoWars article. And again, it starts out with Greg Locke talking about how Jones is wrong and it's not, the Star of David is not satanic and all this stuff. But we all know. We know that it is, don't we? We've all looked at it usually to some degree. All right, modernity.news, a couple articles from there. Where's Iran's uranium? Top secret leaked U.S. intel says core nuclear components are intact, which is what I mentioned earlier. So this is just a Zero Hedge article actually posted on modernity.news. And let's see, I won't bother reading that, but you guys know where it's going. I'm going through these fast because I want to get to one here in just a sec that I wanted to read through just a little. Having failed in Iran, Israel now attacks all non-Jews in West Bank, including Christians. So this is a Vaccine Impact article. With the failure of Israel and the U.S. to overthrow the government of Iran, talks are beginning about a settlement to the current Gaza war as well. So this is also a Zero Hedge article, at least to some degree. More horrific footage from the Israeli settler pogrom against the Christian village of Taiba in the West Bank, where settlers' houses and vehicles are set on fire. So these are Christians who are being persecuted and killed over there. Because that's what they do. That's what Israel does, isn't it? They're the terrorists, and they accuse everyone else of being terrorists. Trump desperately trying to change the narrative on Iran. CIA intervenes to control Mockingbird U.S. media. So this is another article that I thought might be worth looking at if you guys are so inclined. That's on Vaccine Impact as well. And this is the one that I thought I would try and get to and just read through just a little. We're running long here tonight, so we'll wrap it up here in just a sec. But this one, Israel 365 News. For the first time in 2,000 years, Israeli mill to produce semolina kosher for temple offerings. I had to figure out what semolina was. I didn't really know what it was, but it is the first shelf-ready products are expected to become available by June next year. So what it is a type of flour. So it says that Israel will manufacture flour in accordance with the strict halachic, which is Jewish legal requirements for use in the temple. The semolina, made from new Israeli wheat, will be produced in a dry milling process that ensures it does not become ritually impure, a necessary condition for offerings brought to the altar at the Holy Temple, which doesn't exist yet. The first shelf-ready products are expected to become available by next June, so a year from now. Does that mean we have a temple a year from now? Well, they're going to have this particular item ready to go by then. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? So yes, semolina, kosher flour for the coming temple. So they're going to have the bread ready, but no temple yet. So what does that tell you? That tells me that a temple is probably coming pretty soon. All right, GeoWatch for this week. two articles, actually. First one, just the normal GeoWatch broadcast. Massive wildfires in Canada help keep the world cooler. Researchers call for urgent exploration of methods to cool Earth. And are climate engineers desperate and dangerous enough to incinerate Earth's last remaining forests as a means of temporarily and toxically cooling the planet? The short answer is yes. Even with firestorms raging around the world, the weather makers managed to manufacture winter in Montana with 2 feet of chemical snow. Mentioned that last week. Conditions all over the world are growing more dire by the day. So that's Dane's broadcast for this week. Global Alert News, show number 516. And then the other one that did get a lot of views on YouTube, at least I know. State representative sounds alarm on climate engineering. Undisclosed and officially denied climate engineering operations continue to rage in our skies, though populations are finally beginning to awaken to what's being done to them without their knowledge or consent. In a world where government everything is synonymous with deception and criminality, unyielding honor and courage is still standing strong in a select few. South Carolina Representative Lee Gilreath is one of those few. Representative Gilreath continues to set a stellar example of what an elected official should stand for if they truly represent the people. Global climate engineering / weather warfare operations are wreaking havoc on climate systems where simultaneously contaminating every breath we take due to the toxic climate engineering fallout. Representative Gilreath deserves our unwavering support. Our collective efforts are desperately needed in this most critical battle to fully expose and halt devastatingly destructive geoengineering programs. So here is the video here with the representative and some other pictures and stuff here too. So something to take a look at if you guys want. Those both came out this week on the GeoWatch newsletter list. If you're on that list, you may have already gotten that in your inbox, hopefully. And if not, though, you can certainly find it on geoengineeringwatch.org. So feel free to look at that if you guys are interested. Crucial information, if you ask me. And then let's see. The upcoming scheduled weather is looking about like it did last week. Still got a rather, I guess you could call it a heat wave. It's above normal temperatures in the Northeast and Midwest and even into the South where I am. So above normal temps pretty much in the East and somewhat in the West, although a little cooler out West in the Southern California area and Arizona and so forth. So anyway, and those dates are July 5 through 9 coming up. So there is that. That's the scheduled weather on NOAA's website. And let's see here. Prince Charles update, King Charles update, just because he's going to be the biblical Antichrist very soon, I still think. And I thought this was kind of weird. George Clooney and his wife among stars to crash the King's party. So I was just going to play this only because, well, there's no point in listening to the audio because it's a little bit garbled. But this, I think, just kind of shows you got people like Clooney, who is, at least he was at one point, on top of the massive criminals that run Hollywood. He is right there, and you can see, how even people like him are sort of fawning all over the king. So I think it just helps further prove the point that Charles is very likely going to be the guy. Not because of George Clooney, of course, but just the fact that you have people like this who still, for whatever reason, really admire this guy and really, line up and stand for a long time to meet him. So he still has quite the following, even though, most people in this country don't really care that much. You still see that, the elites definitely like him. So I just thought that kind of helped prove that point a little bit. You can see just the way Clooney looks at him. He's sort of in awe, you know what I mean? And we already know how evil Clooney is. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. And then, of course, here's the meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky, who almost has a suit on. Not quite. Almost. No tie. I think he's dressed about the same as he was at the funeral for the Pope a few weeks ago. But I thought this was kind of odd just because they were meeting. But it says, King Charles hosts Volodymyr Zelensky at Windsor Castle. So Charles doesn't look very good here for some reason. I don't know. He's just heavily made up or whatever, but his eyes were kind of watery. And he's got that sort of devilish smile as well. But meeting Zelensky. So I guess that's what you do when you're head of the world. I mean, at least to some degree. So anyway, that is the Charles update this week. Pretty short. And then Diamond Report on X. Make sure you're following me there. Let's take a look at just a few of these posts and we can wrap it up for tonight. Remember the plague that wiped out the Amish because they don't sky their children? Remember that? Yeah. Me neither. That's good. And then this, I just retweeted this from Musk's Twitter account earlier. This is the world's first autonomous delivery of a car. This Tesla drove itself from the Gigafactory in Texas to its new owner's home 30 minutes away, crossing parking lots, highways in the city to reach its new owner. So here it is. This car is driving itself to its new owner's house. So get ready. Get ready. It's coming. No thanks. But you can see that, we're on the verge here. Self-crashing cars everywhere. So yeah, this was in Texas. Gigafactory, Texas. Gigafactory is just where they manufacture them. So obviously this is a big deal. So anyway, then here's the generally, we saw that. Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier where RFK Jr. is talking about how everybody needs a wearable. Well, get a load of the picture on the right there. It says strapping a radiation emitting device to your pulsating wrist 24/7 has to be one of the most insanely ludicrous health interventions that humans have ever conceived, second only to poisonous, and we know what that is. So this is the smartwatch, and this is the result of the smartwatch. Isn't that lovely? So, not good. Not good at all. Let's see here. Then this repost from Laura Loomer was just talking about the shooting and the fires and stuff in Idaho earlier today. Chilling police scanner audio of frantic officers calling for backup and medical help after a shooter set a fire in Idaho to lure the firefighters in and then started opening fire on police and firefighters as they were responding to the wildfire. And they did neutralize the shooter, apparently. Then these are some of my video clips from last week. Looking to see if there's anything else. I guess that's all. Oh yeah, here's the 7 years ago. These are famous quotes from presidents of the past. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Tear down this wall from Reagan. They don't know what the F they're doing. That's Trump's famous quote now. From the other day. Talking about Israel and the Iranians. So there you go. Anyway, that is the Diamond Report for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. It is officially 1:02 a.m. It's very late here. So we'll wrap it up, but make sure you follow me and that you're on the Substack list, and feel free to join that, and then also know that if you want to support the show, it is available there. It's on Substack as well as Subscribestar. So that is this page and this page. And do have a few people supporting what I'm doing, and thank you very much for the help. I mentioned last week we lost one subscriber on Subscribestar last week, I think it was, and we're down to 15 now. So I would just encourage you, if you have any extra funds at all and want to support the show, I would it would definitely be going to a good cause because, like I said last week, my cost is going to be going up to do this show because my live stream software is going to be charging a monthly or yearly charge just to be able to live stream to multiple platforms. I mentioned that last week. They have now pushed back their deadline date of that, so I do have a few more weeks on that before that kicks in, but it will start in July, which that's coming up very soon. So now instead of July 7th, I think it's like the 28th or something. They pushed it back a little bit for internal reasons, they said, but it will be happening. I still don't know the cost, but just know that will be coming. There's apparently a lot of people worried, about this July 4th coming up. And there are some people saying that, there could be a bio attack or a bioterrorism type of attack on July 4th somewhere. I don't know. That's just, it's in the cards out there. People are talking about it. That doesn't mean necessarily that anything like that will even happen, and hopefully it won't. But just know that it is being talked about, and you can find probably multiple other videos and people talking about it. I didn't really report on that much tonight just because we had so many other things to talk about as well. But, and it's just one of those what if scenarios. But who knows? I mean, if they're going to run, different trial runs and drills and stuff like that leading into it, that also will increase the likelihood that something like that will happen. So anyway, something to keep an eye on for sure. And again, if you want to help what I'm doing, then supporting me on Substack and Subscribestar is a way to go there. And then obviously we have the store as well. So that's available on the shop.thediamond.report, which is linked in the black box up there in the upper right. But one of the best things you can do is just simply subscribe to the channels that I have here and support what I'm doing that way. That's a free way to go. Pretty easy for most people to do. You could subscribe on Rumble. You could subscribe obviously on YouTube. Would certainly appreciate that. BitChute and Brighteon, and then Band as well. So the Band group is available. Miss Emily's posted the links in the chat. You might have to scroll up a ways to find them, but they are there, and they're also linked in the description box too. So the Band group is our group of people here, who a lot of which are in the chat, and then just some other folks as well, friends of mine and people that contribute to the show in some way, and people who support what I'm doing. So thank you guys for being part of the Band group, for being part of the subscription group who subscribe to what I'm doing on some of the different platforms and channels and stuff. So yes, that's it for me tonight. Thank you guys for being here, hanging out with me. It turned out to be kind of a long broadcast. We have the next broadcast will be the first one in July. That will be the 6th. So yeah, July 4th will come and go. If something big happens, obviously I'll be on before that. But if it's a normal week, which hopefully it will be, then yeah, we're looking at 10 p.m. Central on Sunday, July 6th. Coming up. So yes, we will say a prayer that nothing bad happens on the 4th. Hopefully it won't. And hopefully you guys will pray that as well. And then let me know if you guys leave a comment or post something in Band. If you want people to pray for you about anything, we're always open to that. And keep the show and myself in your prayers if you don't mind. I certainly would appreciate that very much. And otherwise, we will definitely do it again next week, and hopefully everything will be good between now and then, and we'll just come back with more wackiness to talk about next week. So praises and blessings to you all. Thank you for being here tonight. All praise goes to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and without him, we wouldn't be doing any of this stuff. The show would not even exist. So anyway, thank you guys again for being here tonight and spending some time with me. I really appreciate that. And we will see you guys again next week. Blessings, you guys. Talk to you then.